Good evening and welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. We are one day away from the weekend, and I'll tell you, what better way to talk Sasquatch than being one day away from the weekend? And we're going to be talking Sasquatch tomorrow night, too, because I know we haven't done a lot of cryptid stuff lately with all the UFO news over the last couple of months, but that's okay. We got a great show tonight with movie directors and producers Leigh Savidge and Taylor Guterson, and we are going to have a great night talking Sasquatch all night long. Before we bring the guys in, and they're great guys, by the way, let's give a rundown of everyone in our chat room so far. The gorgeous Jenny Metz in the gold medal position. Sunny takes home the silver, and the lovely Cosmic Floor with a bronze medal tonight. Adam Lakatos, thank you so much for kicking off the super chat tonight. We do realize you are Chad Smith, which that is great. Michael Smith, thank you for coming on in and getting in on the super chat as well. Really do appreciate your support of Spaced Out Radio. Thank you very much. Race Fan, how you doing? Good to see you, my friend. Race Fan will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Moving on down on the chat room, Nicola, good to see you. SJ, thanks for coming on in. Appreciate you. Black Dragon and Jay Foxhunter, welcome to the show. Black Dragon, thank you so much for your super chat. Really do appreciate your support of this great show. Thank you so much. And moving on here, we have Grandpa Holland in Australia. Todd Purdon, good to see you guys. And who else do we got here? We have Jack Clark is here, everyone. Jack Clark, he'll be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the right of the studio. Gorgeous Becky Belling and Data Derivations, how you doing? And good to see you guys. Thank you for joining us as we continue on here. Gorgeous Nikki from Seattle, nice to see you. Solar Warden, nice to have you here. Chris Morales, Doc from Wyoming, good to see you guys. From Austria, Chris Moe, good to see you, man. Thank you for joining us in the early morning for you. Stephen Edmond, nice to have you here, my friend. And we continue on, scrolling. Smokin' Joe, how you doing, man? Good to have you here. Mama Susan, again, thank you for joining us. And the gorgeous Michelle C. from Australia, good afternoon to you. Joey Hayes, nice to have you here. Apollo 11, thanks for coming on in. JR, good to have you here. Sweet Patty B is here, everyone. She's staying up late again. Look at that. She even announced it. She's staying up late again. Look at that. The gorgeous Bat Mom is here. Welcome. Elliot D., good to see you. Vanner Smith. The lovely Tammy Finnegan is here. She has arrived. Give us a wave, Tammy, if you don't mind. The gorgeous Teresa Davis. Mr. Cowley, welcome back to the show. Oh, Mr. Cowley loves his Spaced Out Radio. Kurt Seltzer with a splash of lime. Good to see you. Apollo, thank you so much for that super chat, man. Really appreciate your support of Spaced Out Radio. Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, good to have you here, my friend. Thank you for joining us. Hi, awesome Annie Svensson, the lovely Melinda Science, or Science Melinda, whatever you want to call her. She just likes to be noticed. And Double Tim, good to see you. Jimmy Singer, welcome to our chat room for the first time. And thank you. Hope you enjoyed tonight's show. Glenn John McEnroe, the pride of Wimbledon, is here. Let's see, who else do we have? Ozzy, oi, oi to you, my friend. And Low Pro, good to see you. And scrolling on down, the lovely Sonia is here. Thank you, everyone who subscribed to her channel. We love Sonia around here. Digger Dog, Chad Smith is here. The Chad Smith. There he is, everyone. Chat it up as well as you can. Fiddleback Guy, welcome to our chat room for the first time. Thank you for joining us. Pam C, looking lovely tonight. Thank you for joining us. Joey Hayes, YJ, good to see you. And Yola Tango is here. Gorgeous Larry, how you doing, buddy? The lovely and talented Kara McIver has arrived. Give us a wave from Saskatchewan. It's flat there, so everyone will be able to see you. So let's just start the other feed right there. And who else do we have in the chat room? Ross Smith, thanks for coming on in. Rich Hilke, good to see you. And Richard Lewis, welcome to the channel. And Smoky Mountain Wanderer, good to have you here. Richard Elmore, thanks for coming on in. Mark Rademacher, the lovely Marie S. from L.A. John Gonzalez, how are you? And Grandmaster, thanks for coming on in. We're running out of time here. Millennium, how you doing, buddy? The gorgeous Helena, Silent Edge Manny, how are you? Tracy Benna, looking lovely tonight. The gorgeous Julie Wheeler. I'm moving as fast as I can. Mondak, what's happening? Fapster, there you are. And I think I'm almost done. Michael Smith, thank you so much for another super chat. Really do appreciate that. The super chat is a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So we appreciate each and every one of you supporting us that way. And you know what? We're going to rock and roll tonight. Taylor Guterson, Leigh Savidge. Let's go hunting some Bigfoot, shall we? Let's rock and roll. Get your horns up. Ron Bumblefoot Thal right now. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, at KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out the Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. You know, living in the Pacific Northwest, we always hear the stories of Sasquatch, the legendary Bigfoot, walking around the forest, 7 feet high, 10 feet high, footprints as big as 18 to 20 inches long and 10 inches wide. Yes, this creature has been seen by many, proven by none. But another documentary film has come out about this recently, just released recently in Washington State, called Hunting Bigfoot. Now, it's not actually about bringing out a gun and looking to kill one of these things. No, this is why we have Taylor Guterson and Leigh Savidge here tonight, where we are going to break down what this new Hunting Bigfoot is all about and why they decided to go down the cryptid world. Gentlemen, welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you?
I'm well, Dave. Thanks for having us on your show. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, Dave, thank you. Love to have this discussion.
It's always fun when you get to talk monsters, isn't it? And, you know, Taylor, I want to start with you because, you know, you're the man, the myth, and the legend behind this entire documentary film. And let's take it down. What do you believe about Bigfoot before you even filmed this?
So prior to filming, hunting Bigfoot, I spend a lot of time today out in the wilderness. I love to hike. I hike all around my community here in North Bend, up Snoqualmie Pass, the Pacific Crest Trail, Mount Si, Mailbox. I love the outdoors. And in fact, when I'm out in the outdoors, what's on my mind most is cougars, actually. Fortunately, we had a fatality here 2 years ago, less than 5 miles from where I live. Bigfoot, honestly, has not been on my mind much, never has, but I moved to this community about 5 years ago. And in the time I've been here, the amount of stories I have heard from people in this community about seeing Bigfoot really made me think. And I'm a filmmaker. I've made 3 prior films, and I said, I have to make a film about this. This is just too compelling. There are too many people with these stories for there not to be something more to this. And so that's what really drew me into the subject, made me interested, started exploring it more. And the more and more I talked to people with stories, and then in fact interviewed, experts, first and foremost, Robert Pyle, who has written a book, Where Bigfoot Walks, Crossing the Dark Divide, and really looks at this from a scientific perspective. I mean, after having been involved in this world for 5+ years now, it seems very clear that there's something to this. You cannot just dismiss this at all. And I mean, you yourself, Dave, have a story. Like, dozens and dozens of people I've spoken to. So to answer your question, going into this, I didn't actually have an interest going in, but since I moved to this community where so much of this is taking place, I became tremendously interested.
You know what's interesting? You mentioned how everybody around your town is really talking about their experiences and letting you know that this is what has happened to them. It is a complete opposite from the logging community where SOR headquarters is located, because nobody here talks Sasquatch. And it's funny, I actually have hookups at the two local hunting stores, both owners. I said, hey, if anybody actually comes in and says they had a Sasquatch encounter, call me. I've left my cards, everything. And, one of the gentlemen says, like he just bought a cabin up north, about probably a 6-hour drive. And that area is notorious for Sasquatch sightings. Even the First Nations people will not go into that area because they are so afraid of Sasquatch. He's like, anytime you want to go there and go search, I'll throw you the keys. I'm like, right on. Let's go. But up here, it's not that big of a topic. Why do you think in your community, Taylor, that Sasquatch is so prevalent?
Well, I think there's a number of reasons. You do have a large population here in Snoqualmie, a great history of Native American Indians, and there's centuries of stories that date back there. And I will say, for that population, those people, those that I've talked to, they do see it in somewhat of a different way than, say, the Robert, Michael Piles of the world, who see Bigfoot as an animal like a deer or a bear or a human being. Many of the native populations around here actually see Bigfoot as a spirit, in a sense, a spirit that may come and go, in particular during difficult or challenging times. And so I think it starts there, because that's the history of this area. And then today we have so many, it's a different day today. We have so many people living here, and we've had all these sightings. And, I can't, like I said before, I can't dismiss these sightings. And I think a lot of these people really, probably did have sightings. And I tend to personally believe that it is more in the world of a bear, and an animal, a creature. And I will say these stories, people don't necessarily just come out and volunteer them. You hear about them from other people. In fact, Mount Si Sports and Fitness, which is a gym I go to, it's in the film. Ben Cockman, who owns the gym, is a Bigfoot fanatic, has had a sighting himself. Many of these stories for me actually came out of the gym. Hearing from Ben Cockman, hearing from other members of the gym, and then I started exploring more and more and prying. And so I wouldn't say this is a community where people just go out of their way to volunteer their Bigfoot story, but you do hear about it, and the more you look into it and ask questions and ask to talk to people, then you really realize, wow, there are so many people that do actually have these stories.
And you know what, though? You're in that gym community where people feel that, you build that camaraderie, you build that trust, and that's where they're coming out. I want to bring Leigh in here for a second. Leigh, you're all the way down in LA, California, and there's not a lot of Bigfoot hanging around the skyscrapers around there. So what got you interested in the topic of the big hairy wild man?
Well, I grew up in Seattle. I grew up in a community called Magnolia. And, I look, the legacy of the Sasquatch was just something that's imbued in you growing up in the state of Washington. Remember, Seattle, 3.5 hours by car from Vancouver, BC. I also kind of wanted to address this notion of the people that have probably had a sighting or had an experience, and they're perceived to be, less than or a freak, or they don't want to come out and say anything because they're worried about some sort of perception. Interesting. So look, when Taylor sent me a work in progress. I've been in the home entertainment and film distribution business for more years than I care to even mention on this podcast. But I've looked at a lot of movies, and when he sent me this, what he perceived to be a work in progress, and I looked, and this John Green character, this guy that he captured in this movie, it's just so compelling. I mean, you want this guy, he's seen something, and you want him to, in the same way you'd want anyone to achieve the goal that they have in their life, you'd want him to capture it. And this is a man that has been successful on any number of fronts previously, that has experienced great loss and is now looking to sort of recapture the magic of that success he had previously. And he's channeling the notion of finding Bigfoot, and he believes he has seen it. And that comes off in this film. I mean, most movies that examine the whole idea of Bigfoot, they're horror films, or it's Bigfoot is the boogeyman. I've never seen a movie that examined obsession with verifying Bigfoot. Now, look, there have been 2,000 sightings in the state of Washington. Okay, are there 2,000 people running around in a Bigfoot suit trying to pawn off some level of fiction? I don't think so. There may be a segment of that. There may be some people just trying to make a joke of this. But even in the marketing of this movie, so we opened in areas in and around the state of Washington where we felt we were in kind of Bigfoot Central. And in talking to people, like I talked to a woman in the police department in Monroe, Washington, and it's right near Gold Bar. I mean, this is Bigfoot Central, huge hiking community. And I called her, and I was just trying to get some information locally, and she goes, "My husband has had 3 Bigfoot sightings." This is not a irrational woman, and she's, very lucid, very, not a nut. Okay, and so, I grew up in and around this, and this notion of the verification of Bigfoot was huge. And so, but what I looked at with Taylor's movie is that the notion of finding and hunting and verifying the existence of Bigfoot is this sort of nomenclature that brings you into a story of personal obsession, of loss, of all these things, where, in the same way you'd have an enormous affinity for a sports team or what have you. For this man, like so many, this is I'm going to find it. I'm going to verify this. I'm sick of people saying that I'm nuts, that I'm crazy, that I haven't seen it. And there are lots. It's not just in the state of Washington. This is in pockets throughout all of America and throughout pockets of Canada, despite the fact that perhaps in your backyard, there may be a lot of doubters. And again, I think it's people that are just afraid to, say something because they think they're going to be marginalized or perceived as crazy. So when I saw this work in progress, I was super excited. And, it's this, we're in this environment now where we're sort of we're probably redefining what a documentary is. Documentaries now have, reenactments with actors synthesized with, actual talking heads footage and verite footage of characters. So what this film is this perfect storm of dramatic pieces in a documentary soup. So Taylor and I, we're not, if someone wants to call it a documentary, we don't have an issue with that. We don't, because what a documentary is being redefined, as literally as we speak. And Taylor will speak to the whole issue of Nomadland, which won the Oscar this year.
There is a real cutting interest secretly for most people about this subject. I think Bigfoot is one of those creatures that we all want to believe is real. For those of us who have had our own personal interactions, we don't need that convincing. We just want it to happen again. I've talked to very few Sasquatch witnesses that say that they don't want to see the creature again. I mean, maybe a couple who have had the crap scared out of them so badly that it causes nightmares, but that's about it. But for the most part, the people whom you're talking to, I would guarantee that they all want to have that interaction. We're all waiting for that close encounter, almost that forest handshake of peace with this big creature. Did you notice that, Taylor?
Oh, absolutely. And again, I'll point to Robert Pyle in the interview we did with him, because he's studied this for decades. I mean, much more than I have. And this obsession and what he calls Bigfoot gold fever is a phenomenon that exists, and it primarily exists for people that have had a sighting. So people that have had a sighting, for a certain number of them, a certain population of them, it fundamentally changes them. And for a subpopulation of those folks, they become absolutely consumed with proving to the world that it exists. There was something about that initial sighting that just, again, fundamentally changes them. And that's, what happened to John Green. And this isn't unique to John Green. This happens, according to Bob Pyle, to a lot of people, a lot more people than we may think. And they dedicate their life to it, to this pursuit, and give up everything, their wives, their families, their career, their livelihood, and they put everything into trying to prove the existence of Sasquatch. And it all starts with that, first sighting. And again, that's what has happened with John. And some people might say it's tragic. I think for me, at least with John and maybe some others, I don't look at it that way. I almost think it gives them a certain sort of meaning in their life and a purpose. And in a certain way, I think there's something sort of beautiful in it. It's not a great comparison here, but if you've seen the documentary Grizzly Bear, Timothy Treadwell spends summer after summer out there with grizzly bears, and some people look at that and they say, this guy's crazy, what is he doing? But I think there's something beautiful about that obsession and about that pursuit. Of course, that's very different than hunting for Bigfoot or searching for Bigfoot. But back to your question, there's no doubt that many people who have what I would call legitimate sighting, not people that might say they had a sighting or pretend to, or maybe they saw something flicker in the woods or whatnot, but people that have had a legitimate sighting, I think they feel compelled to sort of prove that to others, because they know in their own mind, it just drives them crazy that other people don't believe them, but they know what they saw. And so, that's the feeling I get from having been around John and some of these others.
And you hit the nail on the head there, because for a lot of people, they're willing to fight through the ridicule in order to say, hey, I've seen this, But, Lee, we bring you in here for a second, as we got about 4.5 minutes before we have to go to break.
Sure.
At the bottom of the hour. As I've said to a lot of our Bigfoot people recently, every day in North America, there are people hunting. Some have to wait for a certain hunting season or whatever, but there are people who've spent 10, 20, 40, 60 years in the forest trying to hunt a grizzly bear or a black bear, moose, deer, elk, whatever it may be, for food and whatever else they want it for. And they have never, had an encounter. They've never seen anything, never seen any footprints in these illogical places that they hunt into. I mean, what do you say to those people who've been in the forest for decades and have never had any sort of encounter or seen any evidence?
Well, first of all, I don't think that the people looking for Bigfoot want to kill it. And that's we had this whole issue, you know, when about the title, and Taylor said, "Do we want to have the title Hunting Bigfoot?" And I said, in this case, it means hunting to verify, not hunting to kill. So it's an important distinction there. I think these people, that they want it live. They want to capture it, you know, as a you know, real breathing thing versus trying to actually shoot it or kill it. And so the hunter and the verifier is different from someone that's going to go out and look to kill a deer or an animal or a elephant or something like that. That's one thing. The other thing is, what's your big takeaway here is the level of commitment. I mean, to slog through the snow. If you look at what Taylor captured in this movie, you know, I mean, I'd last about 10 minutes out there when it's below zero and it's freezing and you're kind of going up. And even when I first started watching the first few iterations of this, I'm thinking, you know, Taylor's got to be freezing his ass off, you know, trying to capture this thing. So, I mean, that really speaks to this level of commitment that these people out. I'm not aware of people with a 30-06 out there looking for Bigfoot. They want a picture of it. They want to say, look, I've been talking about this for, you know, years and years, and and in the film, what does John Green do? He sets up a series of cameras in areas that he thinks are going to be high, high percentage in terms of possibly Bigfoot coming into that area. So I don't know if that answers your question, Dave.
No, I think it does. And the play on words in the title, I know when I first learned about this online, I got really upset right off the bat, guys, that what really do we have another crew going out there to actually hunt and kill one of these? But when I learned about it, I was like, oh, this is why we got to get you on the air. And thankfully, we've been able to do that because that is the purpose. I mean, this is a creature that everybody wants that photograph.
Dave, if this film had been about discrediting people looking for Bigfoot, Taylor wouldn't have made it, and I wouldn't have picked it up. I wouldn't have wanted to distribute it. You know, we wanted to examine people that are obsessed with this phenomenon, and he captured it beautifully.
I would add, and Dave, we have to go to break, let me know, but I would add to your question there. There's a lot of people that spend a lot of time in the wilderness, hunters, hikers who spend days, months, years out there who've never seen Bigfoot. That's completely true. To me, I mean, just because that's true does not mean Bigfoot doesn't.
Let's hold that thought. I'm telling you, we got a good show tonight. Let's talk movies, hunting Bigfoot with a camera, not a gun. Here on Spaced Out Radio, our guests, Taylor Guterson and Leigh Savidge. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this. That's a good start, guys. Strong start.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Good lead-ins, too.
Not a problem. I am a professional. Face
you
for
are
radio.
A professional.
Face for radio. Not bad.
Yeah, I like your questions.
Guys, I'm going to step away for 30 seconds. I just got to hit the bathroom here. I'll be right back, okay?
Sure.
Just, you guys could chat away. Remember, the YouTube crowd can hear you.
Yep. Lee, you're coming to the screening tomorrow in West Seattle?
Absolutely. I'll be there.
Why not?
Gonna first make a stop to Gig Harbor, pick up some posters.
Okay.
We're putting the finishing touches on the Hunting Bigfoot wine gift basket.
Ooh.
Which a friend of mine who has a winery up in the Sonoma County is going to throw up a website. It's going to have a T-shirt, a poster, a bottle of great Pinot Noir. It's going to have the Hunting Bigfoot Pinot Noir with the label on the back. I'll show you the whole thing, and it's interesting that I don't think we're out of school mentioning this. These T-shirts are people who come to these screenings have wanted to buy the T-shirts.
Oh, yeah.
So
I've already bought 3.
Well, it's rare that an independent film actually creates some sort of merchandising possibility, but I mean this does, and I think we could say, so we've got the YouTube listeners, that it would appear that in just 3 and 4 theaters by the end of this weekend, we will get into the top 200 of all movies in theaters across the United States.
Great.
So it's pretty incredible. I don't know if you want to talk at all about the kinds of things we're doing to market the film, but it's we're in this crazy environment of streaming day and date with movies in theaters, and this existential crisis that these small independent theaters face in staying in business. It's happening in Canada, I'm sure, as well. So Dave, we can speak to that if you want to raise that.
Yeah, I mean, we can let's just run with it. I like that idea, though. I like that idea.
Yeah, I had a point to make too about why so many people haven't seen.
Yeah, we're going to continue with that when we get back.
Sure.
When we get back, because that's kind of interesting, because I had a buddy of mine, Mark, who, when he first got introduced to the show, he lives just down the road from me. Him and I become best friends, and at first he's like, "Yeah, I don't believe it's Sasquatch. I've been out in the forest for 35 years. I've tracked wolves. I've tracked mountain lions, and I've never seen anything." And then I showed him a footprint in the forest.
Yes.
And it screwed him up. It literally screwed him up. He was like, "You got to be kidding me right now." Right. And his entire direction changed on that. So we got about 1 minute, 30 seconds here, guys. Okay. You having fun yet?
Having a ball.
Yeah,
this is where it gets fun, This is where it gets fun.
Because all the other interviews we've done on radio and for media, they're so quick. You never have any time to really say anything.
Yeah.
They give you your 5-minute piece and then get the hell out. Right?
But if 5 minutes, they spend half the time talking themselves. So,
but
I've been interviewed on the UFO subject by a bunch of different Canadian media outlets. And they're all the same way, just rush, talking half the time. And you know what? Not one single question has ever come to me about UFOs or what's Canada's role in this. They all want to talk about the American side, and nobody wants to talk about whether or not we have UFOs in Canada. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
Well, if we have time for it, Dave, on the show, if you're up for it, I would be very interested to hear a description of your story.
Oh, we can get into that. I've had a couple of run-ins. Give me 2 seconds here, guys. Thank you, Christopher, Ozzy, Steve, Mark, Mike ×2, and Apollo, Black Dragon, and Adam for the amazing super chats. Here we go with the second half hour in 5 seconds. Get ready to get your horns up. Bumblefoot is coming. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears. Want to remind you that if you've missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight talking hunting Bigfoot. Not with a gun. No. We're talking cameras. And the gentlemen we are talking to tonight are Taylor Guterson and Leigh Savidge. Have a brand new documentary out being shown all over Washington State called Hunting Bigfoot. And this is getting a lot of really cool traction. So we thought we'd bring them on, talk a little Sasquatch. Why not? I mean, that's what we do around here. Gentlemen, welcome back. Now, Taylor, right before the break, you were talking about hunters. You have a theory as to why many experienced hunters have never really had a Sasquatch encounter or found any evidence.
Yes, hunters and really anyone who loves the outdoors and spends a lot of time in the outdoors, whether it's hunters, hikers, I mean, really anybody, I would say most people, the vast majority of people are never going to see Sasquatch. I have spent countless hours in the forest, both with this film and the hiking. I have never even seen a cougar. And a cougar is much more common, quite honestly, than a Bigfoot. They're all around here. I never see them. I've never seen a spotted owl. There are so many animals that I've never seen and most people have never seen. So the fact we've never seen them is a terrible argument to suggest that they don't exist. I would also add to that, there are many places, in fact, most places in the wilderness that people do not go. In fact, in our piece, I don't believe it actually made the cut, but one of the scientists that we talked to made the argument that there's nowhere in the wilderness that people don't go anymore, that everything's been explored and looked at. And that is not true. That is not true at all. Most people stay on the trails. There is so much raw land out there that's hard to get through that people never go to. In fact, in Maine, a few years ago, they found that Christopher Knight, the hermit of the North Pond, living out in the wilderness for 27 years, and they didn't know he was there. And he wasn't even in a remote area. He was just in an area that people didn't go. It was about a mile off some lake cabins. And they'd been looking for this guy for decades, and that's not even a remote area. So the idea that there couldn't be huge areas of land that are hard for people to get to, that people don't go to, where there could be a population of these creatures living, I think is completely reasonable. And again, if you ask Bob Pyle, who's really studied this, he speculates there's 500 to 5,000 Bigfoot from Northern California up to Alaska. And certainly, I mean, wherever they may or may not go, and of course, people have had encounters with them because people have seen them. We've been talking about that. But the vast majority of people will not see them. And that's accurate.
And that's very true. But I mean, if you're not knowing what you're looking for, you're not paying attention to what you're looking for, you're not going to see it. It's very rare. And then there is the population, Taylor, that says you don't find Sasquatch. It finds you. It allows you to see it.
That's true. And we've heard that from folks. And there's a lot of different angles, believe me, a lot of different angles on this. There are those that believe that Sasquatch intentionally reveals itself to certain people for certain reasons. There's others that believe that it's seen as any other very rare animal. Again, I'm making a comparison to, say, a cougar or a spotted owl, but you do have to be paying attention out there. I mean, if you're not paying attention, you have even a less likelihood of seeing it and being aware of your surroundings and respect for your surroundings. And in particular, the sounds and the tracks that people have found out there is in many cases, there's no better explanation than Bigfoot.
It really is a special creature for those who have had the encounter. I know when I saw the two within 100 feet of me back in 2014, I was just enamored. I didn't want to leave the forest, but I wasn't sure if I should or not out of safety because we really don't know. I mean, but that also opens up one of the great debates, gentlemen. And Lee, we'll start with you on this because there's a big division within the Bigfoot Sasquatch community on whether we are dealing with a blood, flesh and blood creature, a gigantopithecus of North America, or we are dealing with something a little bit more spiritual and supernatural, like many First Nations and American Indians believe that it could be a shapeshifter or interdimensional. We have other people who have reports that there is, they've seen Sasquatch tracks just end or a creature vanish right in front of them. I mean, we have this great debate going on in the community. So Lee, where do you stand on that, or does it even matter?
Well, again, one of the things I love about Taylor's movie is that John Green, who's our central Bigfoot obsessive, simply does not agree with few others, when it comes to, if they saw it, what it is. A lot of these people believe, no, I saw it, and they're dismissive of this notion that someone else did. I wanted to say something. So my family has some property up on the eastern end of Hood Canal. And last year we put up cameras. I've been coming up there for 60 years. Okay. No wild animal sighting. We put up cameras and we tracked a mountain lion, and no one had ever seen a mountain lion there. And it came in at it was there at, it was probably 3 or 4 in the morning or so on the west side. Now you go to the other side. A Hood Canal runs 100 miles long. Okay. It's a mile across and 100 miles long. Seattle and Washington being an inland seaport. And if you go on the eastern side of Hood Canal, this area, the Olympic Mountains, what they call the Brothers, as Taylor was saying, there are no hiking trails up there. There are none. It's just a bunch of forest, except if there's a forest fire, which, occasionally will sweep through and you'll see this. It looks like, somebody has a mohawk or a bad haircut, because you see a bunch of, when a forest fire cut through there, but plenty of places to hide, plenty of places to sequester. So, I can't say specifically, but I'm leaning towards this notion of an actual being that knows that it can sequester itself in an area where no human goes and can live there. I mean, you'd have to have a team of people going into this heavily wooded area with no trails to be able to, verify in an area like that. But that's just, again, so much of us, we all have our personal view. And I understand that people feel they had a spiritual experience. They saw it, and that's their reality of it. We're not dismissive of anyone, who says that they've had a sighting, and if, just wants to weigh in one way or the other in terms of whether it's spiritual or physical.
How about for you, Taylor?
Well, for me, the framing of this, and in the interviews we've done and the research on this, I've heard this debate, the way you categorize it is accurate. I think for me, I don't understand why it has to be one or the other. Why, if, does Bigfoot have to be a sort of supernatural or spirit or a flesh and blood animal? Or why potentially could it not be both? I mean, why are we even having this debate necessarily? I've heard stories from people where it seems very likely that it is a flesh and blood animal. And I've heard stories from people that it's very clear that it's a spirit. And so I don't really understand this debate. Sometimes I think it's not helpful to sort of the promotion of Bigfoot at large. So I don't like to say I believe in one or the other, because I'm not dismissive of either. I'd say for me, I think when I'm talking about it, it's easier for me to sort of describe it more from a flesh and blood animal perspective. But because I describe it that way does not mean I'm dismissive of those, especially the native populations here in the Snoqualmie Valley that view it as a spirit. In fact, one thing I think is really interesting about this area, this did not make the edit of our film, but we did capture content on it, and I thought it was very, very interesting. Is in that when we had a lot of serial killings around here with Ted Bundy and the Green River Killer, this area in which I live now, Snoqualmie Ridge, unfortunately was an area where a lot of bodies were put and found. And during these times, there are many, many reports of Sasquatch sightings in this area. And what I have been told from sort of the spiritual piece of this is that when things are wrong, when things are bad, when there's turmoil and emotion, that Bigfoot will present itself. Why that is, I don't know, but I do find it interesting to see the number of reports from the same time that these horrible acts were taking place.
That is interesting. That is very interesting. But the great debate also causes a lot of stir within the Sasquatch UFO community, and not UFO. I don't know where the hell I came up with that, so pardon me on that. But within the Sasquatch community, because you get reports, not to stir up drama that's really unnecessary, because you guys as filmmakers don't care. But you have organizations like the BFRO that are editing or eliminating reports that come in because it may involve a UFO as well, or it may involve something ghostly or the creature disappearing. And that's why there is a great debate, because, everybody wants to flog around the word science, and yet the majority of them who are flogging around that word haven't conducted a scientific experiment literally since probably grade 9 or 10 in high school. And that's where, a lot of the great debate happens, because, we all want to be right. We all want to get in front of that camera. We all want to be hanging out with guys like you on a documentary, and having our Bigfoot life story told. Yet in the end, we're just a bunch of idiots who are running around a forest playing scientists when we don't know how.
Yeah, I can see from the way you described it that there would be reasons for people to have the debate that may be in their best interest. But I think from a larger perspective, at least, so I understand why that debate is taking place. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, absolutely.
I understand that. But I think, again, the way I look at it is I don't understand why it has to be one or the other. If you subscribe more to the fact you sort of see or believe in Bigfoot as a flesh and blood animal, why that would have to automatically negate the notion that it may also exist in a spiritual form. That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, and Lee, I get your opinion on this, because, there is a real useless debate out there, if we could call it useless, and apparently it sees who can swing their Bigfoot stick harder and louder and bang it against a tree in order to get their opinion going. Because realistically, that's what's happening in today's Bigfoot community. It's not like back in the day when we had John Green and we had people like Albert Ostman still alive, or Renee DeHinden, or Dr. John Bindernagel, walking around the forest trying to figure out what it was. They had their opinions, but their opinions didn't matter. Today with social media, it seems to be all about opinion and conjecture rather than anything scientific.
Getting unanimity among thought when it comes to Bigfoot sightings is like herding cats. I mean, it's impossible. Different people see different things. They internalize different things. And that's that's just the way it is, you know. And so, I mean, that's what but we're not going to, you know, I'm not going to diminish these people. I mean, people I respect personally have had these sightings. So, you know, I'm not going to, and you know what? They're passionate about it. If you're going to coexist with them, you've got to be able to, you know, have
Be
that.
open-minded.
You have to have that discussion with them. And you know what, the connection, you say that you were reluctant, I think, to connect people that have had UFO sightings with Bigfoot sightings. And I wouldn't see an issue if those people were one and the same and they saw something like that. I feel like I've seen things I can't explain at night at 3 a.m, you know, laying on the rocks on Hood Canal, and you know, what the hell is that? It doesn't look like a plane. It doesn't look like you know, it's not a seaplane. It's, you know, and so, you know, it's a very individualistic experience that people have with this. And, you know, you're gonna make some enemies if you try to discredit them, you know. And that's the zeal. One of the things I love is is the zeal that John Green has, you know, and the determination. I mean, it's like you set yourself with a goal, and your goal is to, I mean, all great movies have someone that wants something, that has set a goal for something. And for it to be Bigfoot, and you can feel it and see it in this character, I mean, it's riveting. That's what people come away when they watch this movie. I don't know if I answered your question, but
No, I think you do, because what you're saying is, look, we can't rule out possibilities if we don't know what those possibilities are. It's basically what I think is logical thinking there, Lee.
You're going to say, okay, well, I'm going to discredit what someone personally experienced, you know, and they weren't on drugs, they weren't drinking, they were of sound mind, and they saw it. I mean, are they saying it to try to get attention? I don't think so. I think they're saying it because they made a connection with something. And initially they're afraid because they're going to be perceived, they feel, like a freak. And so they keep it to themselves, but some can't. Some say, no, it's on. I'm gonna verify this.
You know, one thing I think is really, at least for me, was very interesting in the film, and spending so much time with John Green, which is his name. It's just, that's a coincidence. Is I think the way John talks about Bigfoot and his experience, and, you know, his search, is for the most part under the context, again, of it being a flesh and blood animal. We had one interview that really struck me as different, and I don't think John was even really aware in his mind of what he was saying, but it obviously was true to him. And he said in this interview, and it appears in the sequence of the film when they're at Snoqualmie Falls and the falls are pouring down around him and there's mist around him. He says that he thinks that he says Bigfoot appeared to me for a reason, and it's going to happen again, and I can feel it. And those aren't the type of things you say when you just see a cougar or a bear out there. There's something else going on there that is spiritual. And so in that way, it was sort of both in the same time. I mean, whether it was a flesh and blood creature, if there was something more to it all at once. But those were the words John said. And again, I don't think he was even that conscious of what he was saying. But as soon as he said that to me, I'm like, wow, there's something much deeper going on here.
And that's the point that a lot of people who have these encounters are trying to get through to the monkey people of the world, or the Gigantopithecus people of the world, is let's look into it. It doesn't hurt to look into it. And when you advance the topic and you advance the study, we all win. Even if there's nothing there, we all win, Taylor. And the fact that you guys kept your own minds open for your movie Hunting Bigfoot, I think that's incredible. That's the way it should be done. Now, most people who haven't had an encounter are really going to say, well, we think it's some sort of monkey, because they haven't really looked into it, or ape-like creature. But the more you get into it, the more you study, all of a sudden, wow, there might be something there. There might be something to it. And that's the open mind that I think you guys are taking with the project. Am I wrong?
Oh, well, you're not wrong at all. I mean, you're 100% accurate. And I think you'd have to be really sort of just naive and just think you're a complete know-it-all to be so certain that after talking to so many people who have these stories, and to again, to be dismissive of so many things people have seen and heard and things that have been presented to you, that if you were to take that sort of attitude that just, nope, there's no way, I really don't know where you're coming from as a person.
Lee, we got 2 minutes left. Would you like to mention about just your overall thoughts about this topic and the generalization of this creature?
I think for me, I think people need to see a movie about a guy obsessed with verifying Bigfoot, because all the Bigfoot movies that have been made are horror films about a boogeyman. Nobody's really gotten into the psychology and what's at the root of these people that hunt for this creature. Now, there are going to be people that look at this and they go, oh, they're going to, may have this interpretation, oh, they're somehow discrediting this guy because there are others in the film that think the guy's crazy. And that's never the way I looked at it. I looked at him like, this is a guy truly committed to finding something, and it's, look, people, in the way that people interpret, I saw Bigfoot, or I didn't see Bigfoot, or Bigfoot exists or it doesn't exist, they're going to have a different interpretation of this film and what the meaning of this film is. But, Taylor and I are in sync in terms of what we're doing here. I told him, I mean, this is a work of genius. No one's captured it like this. And
very true.
Anyway, I just I'm really happy you're giving us a profile here.
Oh, I'm glad I am too, because I'm having a lot of fun with you guys tonight, and we're going to continue with the Bigfoot talk, because we got to find out who is John Green, and we got to find out, what we're searching for. Let's do this. We got hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio coming up next with our guest tonight, Taylor Guterson and Leigh Savidge. They are from the new movie that's been released in Washington State called Hunting Bigfoot. Now, we're not talking guns, people. No. We're talking cameras. We're talking about obsession of learning what Bigfoot is all about and why the chase is so important to people like John Green. We'll be back with hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio right after this. Stay tuned. Bigfoot Talk continues. Rock and roll, man. This is a good show.
Good. Thanks, Dave.
Do we have a couple minutes here, Dave?
Yeah, we got 6 minutes, guys.
Okay. Be right back.
Yeah, I'm going to step away here for a quick second. I'm going to mute your microphones, and I'll be right back, guys. right, guys. Sorry about that. Give me 2 seconds here. There we go. There we go. There we go. And Nikki, yes, of course. In hour 2, we always take questions. And Super Gary, good job with your dog Scout. Let's see here. Who else has arrived here? Let's see here. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. Oh, thanks, bud.
Won't stop believing.
I know. Daddy's got to do a radio show.
Boston.
Hold on, what?
Can Journey make that song?
Yes, Journey did make that song. Love you, buddy. Sorry about that, guys.
Oh. No worries.
That's my little man. Hey, Jurassic Joey. Good to see you. Mandagero, how are you, buddy? Good to see you. And Selena, much love having you here. And yeah, that's it for new people. That's it for new people. All right, I do want to say a quick big thank you to Ozzy Steve ×2, Snakes, Pam, Christopher, Mark, Mike ×2, Apollo, Black Dragon, and Adam for the amazing super chats. It's a great way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Hey, Vinster, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. Thanks for coming on in. And we got about 10 seconds here, guys. Hi, gorgeous Jen A. How are you? Thanks for coming on in. Okay, everybody get ready. Mr. Bumblefoot's about to rock us back in. Here we go.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Hour number 2 of Spaced Out Radio is underway. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Yicker. Yicker is your password. Use it wisely, space travelers, as the clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight talking Sasquatch all night long. Taylor Guterson and Leigh Savidge are here. They got a brand new documentary film out on Bigfoot called Hunting Bigfoot. No, not with guns, so you don't need to worry about that. It has everything to do with trying to find that elusive film, that elusive photograph that we never seem to get. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking this. Taylor, I'm going to start with you on this one, and we are going to take some audience questions from our chat rooms here momentarily. But who is John Green? Tell us about him.
So I grew up on Bainbridge Island, and John was sort of someone we knew, sort of a friend of a friend. You know, on a community like Bainbridge, you kind of know everybody, right? But I wasn't close friends with him. He's a lot older than I am, but I was aware of him, and always knew that he had some challenges, put it that way, in his life, and had heard, that he may be interested in Bigfoot, and never really thought anything of it. But I was aware of him. And then I told you the story earlier, how I moved to North Bend and became very interested in the subject and talking to a lot of people about Bigfoot and their stories. And John Green dawned on my mind because I was aware of him from my past and knew, I remember John was kind of interested in Bigfoot. I'm going to get a hold of him and see where he's at. And so I got a hold of John, and was amazed with how consumed he actually was with this and had no idea. And in fact, it really it took over his life. You know, he used to live, well, he grew up in England, and then he moved to Los Angeles in the early 90s and had a very successful business. I mean, he was a multimillionaire. He licensed and sold T-shirts all over the country. And then his business sort of imploded, and he got divorced, and he had all sorts of lawsuits, and that crashed down on him. And then he moved to the Pacific Northwest and started a very successful land development company. His wife died of breast cancer, and then in the financial crisis of 2008, he really imploded again and sort of went bankrupt. And then it was around 2009 when he has this claim of a sighting. And again, I find it interesting that his claim of a sighting is consistent with a lot of turmoil going on in his life at that time, sort of back to what I was talking about earlier with maybe the sightings that the natives say when things are in a challenging state, Bigfoot seems to reveal itself. Well, so he had that sighting, and then since then has been again consumed with it, and really has again what Bob Pyle refers to as Bigfoot gold fever, and has been determined to find this. And so when I really sort of learned more around his story, he was sort of the perfect person to center this film around. And again, certainly there's many others here in North Bend that we talk to and are sub characters, and we hear their stories also, and they're a big part of this film. But John really stood out as a clear centerpiece. So that's sort of his background and how I came to know him.
So for you, making him the central character in this, you know, was it his passion, his drive, his ability to not let this subject go that really made him camera worthy?
Yeah, a couple things. Certainly that in which you just described, but John has presence on screen. He has a look to him and a sound to him, and I mean he's kind of a Bigfoot creature in his own sort of way. I don't know if this sounds right, but he's just sort of a movie star without even trying. And you need that to have an interesting film, something that people want to watch. You could take the exact same John Green story, the same chain of events, the same life circumstances, and inject it into someone else, and it just may not come off the same. And so that is, again, one of the reasons that I was really drawn to him. I mean, you talk to John for 5 minutes, and it's like, man, this guy is so interesting. He just makes the decision for you. And then he's just himself no matter what. I mean, anytime you bring a camera into the equation, you alter the reality of what's happening. Everybody becomes self-conscious. It's different, and it's not as real as soon as the camera comes on, right? It's different. People start acting different. John doesn't act different. He's the only one who's still himself. In fact, you've seen the film. He even argues with me many times. He gets frustrated with me. As soon as that camera turns on, John doesn't change. A lot of people change when the camera goes into record mode, and he doesn't. And again, that was another thing I recognized in him, and is why I wanted him as a centerpiece.
I don't blame you, and I can totally understand that. You know, take me through a day of his, like as you're filming this great movie Hunting Bigfoot, and you're watching him get ready to go out into the forest and take you to places where he believes these creatures are. You know, are you feeding off of his personal excitement?
It depends on the day. I mean, as you can see from watching the film, there are days when John is very excited, very enthusiastic, and you try and feed off that energy and play along with them. And there are other days when John couldn't be more down, I would say use the word depressed, and not want me there. And I think it's very important as the filmmaker and being sort of part of his life in many ways that you understand that energy, and not every day or week or month, or in this case year, is is the same. So we certainly had a range of days. We had those days that were just full of energy and positivity, and maybe felt like we were onto something. And then we had no shortage of days where John frankly didn't even want me around. So it was a range of emotions throughout.
I can see that. And Lee, let's bring you in here. When you look at the main character of this, John, what's your thoughts of this man who has, experienced a lot of financial ups and downs, a lot of heartache, a lot of experiences that just, don't make sense? I'm curious your opinion.
It reminds me of getting a movie made in Los Angeles. You've got days where you're really up, and then you got days where, you're up at 10,000 feet and then you crash below sea level. And, that's what I see in John. He's a deeply charismatic guy to watch. And even in his down moments, which Taylor was able to capture, he's still compelling. I think, I don't even want to say this, but it does feel like the zeal that he has speaks to maybe mild Asperger's. I don't even want to say that because I don't know if there's a diagnosis there. But people like John have an inordinate ability to focus. It's like somebody that's a coder or, absolutely has this myopic ability to focus in a way that, regular humans, might not. But all I can say is you can't necessarily, the other thing as I go to this antecedent of, film directors, this legacy of film directors that have picked and selected so-called amateurs, although John's had some acting experience, so-called amateurs, because the director felt that they were capable of giving a more evocative performance because the character was so closely akin to who they are. In other words, were you going to find that's where this interesting hybrid of documentary and quasi-drama, that's where they intersect. He picked him because there are things where it appears that he's maybe improvising a little bit, and yet we're still using the work product of his life. You see him 20, 30 years ago, and he had the t-shirt company. You see him with his former wives. We're extracting, the work product of his life in the same way that a director, who's directing, another actor would simply utilize the work product, know that person well enough to know which tripwires to message. All I can tell you is when you watch this, you can't take your eyes off this guy. You can't. And, you're not going to be bored watching him, go through the paces.
Lee, when you watch this movie, Hunting Bigfoot, outside of John, outside of the subject, what did you learn about yourself regarding the belief in this creature and whether or not that this was a topic which is normally played for as down as fodder for film, being real and being realistic and making a real documentary rather than something of fiction?
You're asking me to point out specifically what if I didn't have an emotional trigger to this, I wouldn't have gotten involved with it. But it's that thing. What is it that so many movies you watch, don't engage you on some sort of visceral, emotional level? This did. So that's all I can tell you is that, I've been distributing movies in the entertainment business for, multiple decades. I've watched hundreds and hundreds of movies. And what the hoped for thing is, that the filmmaker has tapped into some sort of human condition thing that you feel is going to resonate with enough of a, global audience that it's worthy to take the journey, because this is risk laden in every step of the way. It's risk laden for the filmmaker to go in and, in Taylor's case, use their own personal funds to finance something, and then to go out into the, distributor universe, of which I'm a part of. And then for me, what I want is, sometimes I get I am fearful of being emotionally engaged, because I'm wondering, is the rest of the audience going to feel what I'm feeling while watching this? And, sometimes that's the case and sometimes that's not the case. Here, when I knew that I was engaged and I felt that it would have that same effect on others. This is a story of obsession. This is a story of a zealot, a true believer. And you love him and you want him to find it. And the people around him, some are advocates and some think he's nuts. And that's everyday life. Everybody's got a bright idea, Thomas Edison, anybody who's, considered crazy and waits for that moment where, they can say, aha, see, I was right. I was on the right track. And I think people will, so I'm telling you what I tapped into when I saw this, and why, I'm so proud to be part of the distribution of the film.
And for you, Taylor, what did you learn about yourself and this creature the more you got into it, hearing John's story?
Yeah. Well, John's story and the other stories, everything I've heard from everyone in this film, I started out in 2016, the winter, early spring of 2016, making this film. And at the time, I was mainly consumed with exploring the obsession angle, the Bigfoot gold fever angle, and looking into it as sort of a human story, and sort of getting into the psyche of John Green and some of the others as well. And in many ways, 4 years later, that is what the film is about and represents. But I will say, over the 4 years of making the film, my views on Bigfoot, on Sasquatch, changed. As I described to you before, for those that may have been listening early in the program, I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself again, but I'll make it brief. I spend a lot of time in the woods. I always have. I love to hike. I love to be out there. And Bigfoot was never on my mind. I never thought about it. And now when I'm out there, it is. And I'd say that's been the biggest change for me in the last 4 years. Now going on 5. We've been sort of done shooting for a year. Because I'm just so much more aware of what's going on out there because of everyone I've talked to and things I've seen and heard than I was prior.
You a believer now, 100%?
Until I see it personally, if I see it personally, or someone brings out a skeleton or a body, for me, I cannot say 100% for me. I can say for others, John Greens of the world, yourself, many others, that is 100% that they believe it to me. I believe what they have to say. But for me, it's one of those things, I'd love to see a Bigfoot, put it that way. And, for me to say 100% certainty, that's what it would take for me.
How do you think you would react? I'm curious.
With a sighting?
Yeah.
Well, I think that some of it would have to do with the context of the sighting. I've heard so many different stories. I think I'll give you an example. I just watched a few nights ago, The Dark Divide. Have you seen that film?
No, I have
Okay,
not.
it's on Robert Pyle's life. I've mentioned him many times already on this show, but it's a great film. Yeah, REI produced it. It has been out around a year, and there's a scene in that film where Bob Pyle is exploring caves down around Mount St. Helens, and he's walking through these caves with native drawings and on the walls, and it is I mean, they're in a real cave, they're on location. He has a headlamp, and I'd say if I and he's hearing sounds, because there's stories that some of the Bigfoot live in these caves in the sort of volcanic area of Mount St. Helens under the ground. I'd say if I ran into a Bigfoot in that context, it would scare me to death. To be out in that cave with a headlamp and see a Bigfoot come out at me. And in fact, in that scene, Bob Pyle seems pretty afraid too. I'd say if it was a different setting, similar to John Green, where you are in a rainforest, your environment feels more peaceful. You're at more a natural state. It's not the dark. We as humans are naturally kind of scared to be in the dark. And I see a Bigfoot, a couple 100 feet away looking at me through the trees or something. That's a different type of reaction than the cave. That might be more of a spiritual reaction almost, and not I'm going to turn and run. So I think how I would react would very much depend on the context in which the sighting took place.
This film, as we got about 3.5 minutes left before we have to go to break here at the bottom of the hour, has a real passion and storyline to it about John Green, who's a real broken man trying to find himself in the wilderness. Does he ever find himself in this movie, or is it just a day-by-day struggle, Lee?
It's the journey. And I think you talk to people, we've had this internal debate, Taylor and I. God, maybe the worst thing that could happen is he actually finds Bigfoot, because so much of the zeal is in the finding and the hunt and that kind of thing. And I'm worked on other movies and talked to people that built companies, and where they invested so much of their personal time to the exclusion of everything else. And what they say always is it was the journey that was important. It may even be for them sometimes even the success is somewhat anticlimactic, but it's the hunt and the knowing and the deliberations and the scheming and all this, the various setting up of the traps and the cameras and the what goes into the verification that's the thing that really drives them. I mean, you wonder if it would actually be anticlimactic if they actually confronted them and actually got the picture and had a picture of them with their arm around the Bigfoot, with taking a picture of the footprint in the ground, and all the things that on Facebook would verify its existence.
Very true. And Lee, as we got about a minute to go here, with the drive and the passion and the emotion that he is showing regarding this creature, I mean, in the end, do you feel sorry for him, or do you just say this is his life path and this is a journey that's going to continue?
I think you're going to have a split decision here. You're going to have people that look at him and say, oh, they feel sorry for him somehow. And you're going to have an equal number of people that say, I wish I had that level of passion for something in my life. Because so many people are hunting for that thing that gives their life meaning and, that they're excited about. When you see him ebb and flow in terms of his character, but on those up days where he got a small piece of evidence that looks like he's on the right path, he is up, he is sky high. And, a lot of people, honestly, even enormously successful people, they're never going to fill that cup. There's never anything that gets them excited in the way that John Green gets excited about his journey. So, and that's, I think, an important thing for people will tap into when they see this.
Right. And on that note, we're going to continue on with the discussion here of the legendary Sasquatch from the movie Hunting Bigfoot, which has been released in Washington State. We have Taylor Guterson, Leigh Savidge. We're going to continue with the Sasquatch talk when we come back here on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned. It's a good show so far, guys.
I'm glad you think so, Dave.
Yeah.
I haven't done one this long before, so I hope your audience is finding it interesting.
Yeah, they're enjoying it. They're enjoying it. They're just reading the comments. Very, very happy. When do you plan? And I'll ask this on the show, but I got a lot of people asking, when can we see it? When can we see it? I know it's just released, but hold that thought until we get to the radio side, because there's going to be our radio listeners who want to hear that too.
Sure. My favorite subject.
The release date? Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Is that otherwise known as payday?
Well, again, it's the journey here. Remember, it's all about the journey. It's all about the process.
Sure. That's what I say every day while in this chair.
I mean, look, we can't sustain in this business unless, there's some economic,
absolutely
advantage to what we do. But if you want to be rich, you're not doing what Taylor and I are doing. You go run a hedge fund or something. You
don't do what Dave is doing here either. I can guarantee you that.
But there is, we're on the right path in terms of process here.
Hi, Amuamua. Good to see you as you travel by our beautiful planet. Yeah, Jazz Ramblings. It is bedtime for you. You got to get ready for school. He's our youngest listener. We got a real eclectic group here of awesome people. All the Bigfoot people are in too. Mike D for life. How you doing, man? Good to see you. See if anybody else has snuck in that I haven't seen. I try and say hello to everyone who comes into our chat room because it's, without them, we don't really have a show. So if you see me looking down and you hear my keys, it's because I see someone new in the chat room. And I want to be able to do that because if our chat room ever gets to like 400 or 500 listeners a night, I'm not going to be able to, because it's going to be so busy. So I might as well do it now while we can.
Sure.
So
That's
I like it.
You recognize everyone. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. They are the most important people of the show.
That's right, Dave. In fact, when we had our premiere the other night in North Bend, the first thing I did is I read a list of every single person that was involved in the film in any way, because they all deserve to be recognized.
Absolutely. The biggest thing that I have learned in doing this is that people can give you anything, but if they give you their time, that means so much more. Like, we'll have people in our chat room from before the show starts until like after the show. I edit the show and I just keep the chat room open and like after you guys are done and the show is done, while I'm editing the show for our radio stations, I will keep the chat room and the video line going and they chat away in there. There's people in here every night from before the show starts until it ends. And I mean, for somebody to give you that much time, I mean, It's amazing. It really is. It's humbling, to be honest. It's really humbling.
They love what you're doing. They love what you're doing.
Oh yeah.
And it's, it's,
the other thing too, Lee, is we don't allow politics in our chat rooms. We don't allow COVID talk, nothing. And we want people. I mean, these are great people who literally from the time they've woken up, and a lot of us wake up, the first thing we do when we're getting ready and having breakfast in the morning is we put the news on, or we read the newspaper, or read online or social media. And from the time they wake up until the time they get home from work and whatever they do after work until this show, they are hammered by politics, COVID, politics, Afghanistan, politics, COVID. And when they come in here, they know they get 3 hours of complete relaxation, talking to the weirdest subjects, true, but they're not going to be hammered by the other stuff. It's their break. It's their break to fall asleep to. Gentlemen, hold on 1 second. We're going to get things going here in 3 seconds. We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears. We want to remind you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We continue on tonight with hunting Bigfoot. No, not with guns, but with cameras, videography, photographs. Can we find something? Who knows? Maybe you got to see the film. From the film Hunting Bigfoot, we have Taylor Guterson and Leigh Savidge here breaking it all down for us about a man named John Green who is on a personal life quest to find this creature in Washington State. Gentlemen, welcome back. And Taylor, we're going to start with you here on this one. Right before the break, I'd asked you, what did you learn about yourself in regards to this creature? But for you, taking the camera over 4 years, going with John, going out in the forest, what was that like for you going into that, even though you're a hiker for a hobby, it's still going into a different terrain with a different mindset.
That's right. It's much, much different making a film in the wilderness than hiking or hunting, for that matter. In short, it was difficult. It was a challenge. I learned many things along the way, but I come to figure out quite quickly is that I had to be as limited and as simple as I possibly could with my gear, because it's just me. I had no crew. I had no one holding a boom or an assistant with a backpack. It was literally just me. And if I have too much with me, I can't get anything done. So what I ended up doing is just bringing the camera out that was, maybe 20 pounds with one lens, with a microphone on the camera, a shotgun microphone on the camera. Sorry, this may not be super interesting to those that aren't into video. And I would just walk around with this very simple camera with a mic on it and an umbrella over my head, literally carrying an umbrella with one hand and trying to shoot footage with the other hand. And I'll tell you, for anyone that's in the film or video world, this would have looked completely ridiculous to someone looking from the outside in. It's not how most people, I would say, would make a film, or a successful film for that matter. And they'd be like, what is this person doing? And in my mind, I knew it was not necessarily the right way to do things, but it really was the only way to do it. And I wanted to make this film so badly that I was just going to do whatever it took to be out there and to get it done. And my hands would get so cold because you can't really wear gloves when you are out there. There's too many little finite things you have to do on LED screens and focus and changing exposures. And so I couldn't really wear gloves, and my hands, I just remember my hands at times feeling like, am I going to get frostbite? I don't think I was actually quite there, but it sure can feel like it. And John doesn't just stay on the trail. He's going off the trail. So we're crashing through trees and snow's coming down in it. And it was chaotic, but that's what I learned is you just have to be really simple with everything and not try and do too much. Don't bring 5 lenses out there. Why do you need 5 lenses? Bring 1 lens.
So for you, as you're on this journey, did you notice yourself starting to look for this creature? Never mind trying to focus on John, but did you all of a sudden become an amateur Sasquatch investigator?
I love that question because there were times during the filming where John was quite certain that we were on a track or very near, or that something could happen. And John would take out this little camera that he carries around his neck, and he'd get ready to take these photographs. And I would say, John, I have this 4K camera right here. If this thing comes out, we're going to get the best footage of way better than you're going to capture with that little camera. But it never seemed to dawn on him that would matter. He always would take this camera out. And so absolutely. I mean, John Green's been doing this for a long time. He seems to know where to go and what to do. And so for sure, if we were to capture Bigfoot legitimately on camera, you know what that would do for me? So absolutely, it was on my mind. The chance that Bigfoot might come out, and the fact that I have a cinema camera with me, for sure, I was ready to turn it in any direction I needed it if the opportunity presented itself.
Did you feel at any time, Taylor, that while out in the forest with John, that you got close, that there was something around? Did those little hairs on the back of your neck stand up, knowing that something different was following you or watching you?
There was one time for me in 4 years when I felt like there could really be something there. In many of the other cases, I didn't feel that. There's one scene in the film where I really think, I hate to dumb John down, but I think it was a squirrel behind a stump, and John was certain. We actually have a little argument about that. But no, late in September, we are out in the Middle Fork, which is, if you're familiar with the Middle Fork, it's here in North Bend. Popular hiking mountain is Mailbox. We're about 15 miles due north of that in a very remote area, camping out for a few days. And early in the morning, we hear something. John senses something immediately. Like he's a different creature. He claims to feel it around, and you're around him enough sometimes, particularly in this case, it's like a hunting dog. If you're a hunting dog and the dog is on point, you might not know that the bird is there yourself, but you're looking at the dog. And that's kind of like John Green. And all of a sudden, 4:50 in the morning a.m., John just takes off running. I've never seen him run before. He just takes off running. And just that feeling of something could actually be here, the hunt, that feeling. And you can hear me on the camera saying it's zigzagging. And we're like, it's the only time in the film where I'm like, there's something here. Now, we didn't actually get anything. I'm sorry to disappoint you and everyone else, but we did get that feeling. And it happened only one time in the 4 years for me. Yeah.
Now, Lee, does it make you wish that you were in the field more, trying to find this?
One of when I first started looking at the initial iterations of this, and I should mention Taylor and my friend Tom Garai, who's worked with Taylor on previous movies, who I'm in business with.
Tom's in our chat room, by the way.
Oh, okay, good. He turned me on to the film, and I've been made a few documentaries at my company Xenon myself, and I understand this whole thing of attempting to, find the flow in something, and that was Tom and Taylor and I would just kind of work through those issues to get the piece to flow. And I was so happy to see Taylor, find the seam in this thing and get it to really, get it to where I knew it was going to be really great. But to answer your question specifically, I was freezing cold just watching him film this. I'm sitting in LA in a room that's probably 65 degrees, and I'm feeling my hands getting cold just watching Taylor go through his process of, documenting John Green. That was the first kind of visceral, reaction I had. Is, God, they got to be, how long have they been out there? How long can he, do this on, is it an hour or 2 hours or, what length of time? Because I realized there's one scene where, this woman can't take it any longer and goes home. And, that would have been me, if I'd been there, dealing with him. But that was my, you really feel like you're there, even if you're just watching the film.
I want to ask you from a business side, because I never get to do this, Lee. With all the films out there and everybody kind of pushing for that big story, like in the paranormal world, everything's demons, and everything in the UFO world is more about, government cover-ups, and there's always an angle. With this film, why was it important for you guys to pick up this film and really do something with it? Because we don't hear a lot about humanity type documentaries on this creature anymore, or anything.
To acquire a film, and not to get too much into the business of why someone acquires a film, but there almost have to be this perfect storm of things. First of all, the uniqueness. I had never seen a film about a Bigfoot obsessive. Everything else had addressed this idea of Bigfoot as a boogeyman or a horror creature or something. It had never addressed this giant subculture. I don't even want to call it I guess it's a subculture, but they're just literally thousands, perhaps millions of people in the country that are obsessed with documenting Bigfoot. So that's important. Okay. So there's the subject, there's the fact that the film connects on a visceral level. There's my background growing up in the Pacific Northwest, understanding that there's, an audience for this. Mind you, there are 20,000 independent films made every year. Only a fraction of them see a theater. And so there have to be these things of the relationship with the filmmaker, the relationship with Tom, who told me about it, was also an executive producer on this. So all these things factor in. But then, specifically, if you're going to get into the business of releasing a movie during the rise of the Delta variant, where, the theaters now and the studios have gone to this notion of, we're going to release things digitally at the same time that they're released in theaters. You have to come up with a plan that sort of says, well, how are we going to build a profile for this beyond the, tapping into what I feel is the market for this kind of film. And by that, I mean a film for serious people who like serious cinema, and also people that might somehow see themselves, or, where the John Green character might speak to them. That might be two separate, people that might not necessarily be in the theater in a typical movie at the same time. But what we've been able to do, Dave, in our process in the Northwest is that, if we can secure a screen, I don't even want to be on a screen where I don't get engagement from the community, from the chambers of commerce and local business. So, what we want to do, I don't want 15 people in the theater. I want to fill the theater night after night because of an event that kicks this thing off and because of engagement from the local community. And that's what we've been able to do. This film should break into the top 200 of theatrical movies in the United States, this coming weekend, and do it on, 3 or 4 screens where we're only getting occasional viewing. So it's really pretty extraordinary. But so what I'm trying to say is there needs to be a confluence of things that, induce someone like me to want to release a movie in a theater. And this was worthy. And when you have national reviewers like Michael Medved saying this is the greatest Sasquatch movie of all time, we didn't ask him to do that. He watched the movie and it affected him that way. And I mean, that's pretty high praise. And you need a little bit of luck when you're releasing a movie. Look at all the things that are competing with one another. But if you want to watch this movie, you got to see it in a theater right now. It's not on the people will weigh in and say, well, when can I see it? Well, you'll be able to see it in the digital sphere, and we'll release it in the digital sphere, probably sometime in late October. But as long as a theater wants to show it, either in Washington State or in Canada or, around the US, we're going to make sure that those smaller independent theaters, that's where you've got to see it. And what you have to see is, Taylor's describing his process with the camera mounted on with the mic mounted on his camera, one-man crew. This film looks spectacular on screen. This does not look like this looks like Vilmos Migman, shot it, for God's sake. It really looks good. So anyway, I hope I answered your question. But what I'm really passionate about now is the idea of the localized help with the right film and helping independent cinema. I've been in this business a long time. I watched the video store populace get eviscerated, because of streaming. And then I'm looking at these 10, 12,000 independent theaters in the United States, and probably, at least maybe a third of that in Canada. And they're still hanging on. Those people, these are passionate people that own these independent theaters. And you know what? It's the idea of, the same movie being available on Disney Plus or whatever, or HBO Max. That's just knocking I can't say it, but maybe the crap out of their, out of their business. So this movie needs to be seen in theaters, and that's part of the alignment that Taylor and I have. Thanks for letting me be on my little soapbox here.
No, I don't mind at all, because, much like what we do with podcasting or YouTube channels or radio broadcasting, it is a cutthroat field. You're dealing with people who are professionals trying to get, extend their journalism career. Whether it's in what we're doing or politics or sports or what have you. Then you have the crowd of newcomers coming in who may not have that experience, but they have the gift of the gab, coming in, starting off a podcast, competing you. Next thing you know, there's 10,000 podcasts and YouTube channels all fighting for the same limited number of listeners. I mean, it's tough, when you go through that.
Dave, I'd also say, as a practical matter, the way a film gets validated, the way a film gets reviewed, the way a film gets known is via a theatrical release, and that will always be the case. Always.
That won't change even with
that. Well, I don't see that changing. Why does why does the Seattle Times want to review something that went direct to streaming? It's
yeah, and I
really
would add to that, when we say direct to streaming, I think in most people's mind they automatically go to to Netflix or to, what may be front and center on Amazon Prime. But for someone like me, streaming can just mean a black hole somewhere on a Vimeo or YouTube or just anything that there are tens of thousands of films on, and it's really hard to distinguish yourself in some cases on streaming. Streaming does not mean front and center on Netflix for me. And so I really like this approach that Leigh promoted of going to some of these theaters, because it does call you out a little bit. There is a reason why we're getting reviewed, and we're in the Seattle Times, and sort of we've had many reviews now and many articles written about us. And I don't know if it'd be the same if we had gone to streaming, whatever that means exactly, right away. And so I really couldn't be more thankful to, again, Tom Garay, who is my producing partner and friend, who helped brought this film to Leigh, and then what Leigh's decided to do with it.
Yeah, and look,
but here's the thing. Pardon me for cutting you off for a second.
No, go ahead.
But if I look at Amazon, Amazon is much like radio these days, where and self-publishing, where anything can get on there. Just because you have a movie or a documentary on Amazon and you've never made a film before doesn't mean it's any good, but it still goes into the genre category, which potentially could take away viewership from something like you guys do.
Streaming's here to stay. I mean, and there's so many platforms and so many places where you can now give a profile to your film. But the validating piece of the puzzle is the theatrical release. That's where, honestly, it's still the single best place to message the existence of a movie. It's what elicits the reviews. It's what gets the awareness of something. It's what makes something special versus something that, is just and look, if it's direct to streaming and a big streaming company, Netflix or HBO Max or, whomever, has it. Well, they've got lots and, a big, budget to go and promote it as something special. But if we're talking about independent filmmakers that have a smaller film, it's never been more necessary that they have a theatrical profile. And this film was worthy of that. And I also felt that it wasn't a mercenary mission, that it would open if we engaged in the right process, that it would open, and it has opened.
Mm-hmm. And for you, Taylor, still doing it, if we could call it the old school way, if that's the proper way to put it, do you look at it too as it gives your film more credibility, not only for you as a filmmaker, but for the subject of Sasquatch?
Absolutely. And the word that Leigh used there is really important: validating. The theatrical release helps to call attention to the film. It doesn't necessarily mean more eyes are watching the film in those theaters than maybe otherwise would if it were streaming somewhere globally. I mean, that's what streaming is. Pretty much anyone could tune in. But you are able, for whatever reason, to get more attention towards your film because of that theatrical release. So you get, again, written up in the Seattle Times and on the Michael Medved show. And, we've had many, and I think we'll get more. So then when you do ultimately go to streaming, which we are going to do and we want to do, I think you're more set up to succeed by then than you otherwise would have been. So it is an old school route to a degree, but I think ultimately in some ways it's not. Ultimately, we are going to be streaming, and it's really using an old school method to help validate the film, again, so that when you are streaming, it can hopefully be more successful. If that makes sense.
With 45 seconds to go before we go to break, and we got you guys for another 30 minutes on the show, when can we see this going to a streaming format so our audience who's not in Washington State can see it?
Well, as I say, we're going to keep it in theaters for as long as theaters are willing to show it, if I were to anticipate, I mean, I don't even want to, but you know, it's likely it's October, November. Having said that, if theaters continually want to show it, we're going to keep it off the digital sphere and let people see it in a theater. I also, you know, I want to mention that we've got, you know, this, we're all from Seattle. Everybody that's involved in this, even to the right down to the guys delivering materials to, you know, to the theaters. But Chris Blanchett, who showed up, you know, who set up this interview, has been very critical in setting up the our distribution plan.
Gentlemen, I'm going to get you to hold on right there. Bigfoot Talk continues right after this. All right, we're clear. There's good stuff so far, guys.
Good. Well, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, again, thanks for the opportunity, Dave. I mean, it means a
Yeah.
lot to me and to Lee.
I just like the fact that every now and again we can do something different, and this is a different side of the entire Sasquatch conversation. You know, you can only ask so many people, what do you think Sasquatch is? You know what I'm saying?
That's right. You kind of have the same type of conversation again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been good. How you holding out there, Lee?
Hanging tough. Getting up
Good.
at 5 a.m. tomorrow to head to Seattle for our West Seattle premiere.
Perfect.
So, you know, got to play hurt here.
Hey, every now and again
But
you got
4
to
hours
do
of
it.
sleep, you know, that's the way it's going to be.
Yeah, but you have a 2-hour flight to sleep on.
I know. That's a practical matter, though. It's hard to sleep on those damn flights. It just is.
Oh, I hear you there. Hear you there. I haven't been on a plane since literally 8 days before the border shut down. Coming out of San Francisco to Vancouver. And man, that was crazy. That was crazy.
Was that in March of 2020?
February of 2020. And then March 1st, it hit. It was like, oh no. You know what I'm saying?
That was a strange time.
Oh man.
We do, you know, Dave, we do have we've put together a nice construct in our release pattern for Seattle, and it's a bunch of people basically working together for the first time. But we've got a unique kind of release process, and we've got it's a bunch of people working together, doing good work together for the very first time. So I don't know if it bears mentioning, because this business of a theatrical release has to change. It has to change. The content people have to look at it differently, and the theaters have to be more proactive in selecting what they're going to pick. You know, when I came out of the selling in the video store business, you know, that's how I built Xenon Pictures. And, you know, in the old days, before Blockbuster became the primary, you know, dominant player, and they swallowed up a bunch of small regional chains around the country that were heavily localized in terms of the way they perceived the marketplace. And that all got lost when all those got swallowed up and there was centralized, you know, buying like there is with the major theater circuits now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that these smaller regional guys have sustained, and likely because they, you know, have a pretty good sense of what's going to play in that area. And that's been helpful to us, because if these guys didn't understand what Bigfoot was,
Mhm.
and what the direction we were going, and it would be probably a harder sell. They'd sit there and look at it like, they'd look at it like it was some small movie they could dismiss. But
Right.
it's anyway, it's been an exciting run here, and this has been highly, this process with Chris Blanchett and Taylor and myself and Tom, has been unlike any distribution scenario I've engaged in before, where it's just,
Mhm.
we're everybody's running with the same information and getting the same information, and we're making decisions, as things, happen and come up. Normally, a film distribution company doesn't, they just say, show up at the premiere or do this, we've got it handled, we'll figure it out. And I just think that's the wrong way to go in this environment.
I'm excited for you guys. I really am, and
we want to bring this to Canada, and we should speak to that, because I'm thrilled that you're on this, because we know Bigfoot is a thing in Canada. We know.
Yeah. Harrison Hot Springs is the place you need to do this.
Interesting. I went there as a kid.
Yeah.
My parents
that
took
is
me
like
there,
that is
resort.
the Bigfoot. That is the Bigfoot capital of British Columbia.
You know what?
And
I'm
that's literally where the name Sasquatch came from, was the Chehalis First Nations, which is right on Harrison.
So we need to find a theater. We need to find a theater in that area then.
Yeah.
For a Canadian, if we're going to roll it out there.
Absolutely. But, hey, if we could play a small part, whatever you guys want to use for this show, from this show as advertising for you guys, please feel free to do it. And just make sure you say Spaced Out Radio. That's all I ask. Give us a little plug.
No, we'll promote you.
Thank you.
We will.
I appreciate you. We're going to get going here in about 10 seconds. When we get to commercial break at the bottom of the hour, just stick around, and then I'll say a proper good night to you when we come back, okay?
Sure.
All right, here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go, kicking off the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. I want to say hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America and digitally on TalkStream Live, Revolution Radio, and KPNL. All of our archives are free by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Yicker. Yicker is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. For the final time tonight, I've been excited about this show for a while. It's good to have a little bit of a different perspective on Sasquatch. Taylor Guterson and Leigh Savidge are here. They've created a documentary film on a gentleman named John Green out of Washington State called Hunting Bigfoot. Not with guns, but with cameras and photographs. Did they find anything? We have to watch the film. We've got to wait for, most of us will have to wait for it to be streamed, but that's all right. Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on in and going the distance with us here talking Sasquatch. And I want to ask you, Taylor, if you don't mind, now that you have a little bit of a taste of the high strangeness or the woo that we call these topics of the paranormal and the entire paranormal tree, how much has this opened your eyes to potentially going into other avenues regarding not only Sasquatch, but other cryptid creatures, UFOs, and experiencers who say they've had encounters with aliens, and even paranormal and ghosts?
Well, thank you for the question. I think first and foremost on our mind is the possibility of a sequel to this film. So going deeper into finding Bigfoot, hunting Bigfoot. I mean, John is still at this. And the story is not over. I mean, as you've seen the film, Dave, at the end, John's walking back into the wilderness. That's how this film ends. So I have a keen interest in continuing to follow John and others around here and see what happens. Whether or not I'd venture into some of the areas that you were suggesting, I'm not sure. I'll say this about that, though. My interest in Bigfoot prior to making this film, let's say 6-7 years ago, was no different than my interest in any of those other topics. I wasn't really thinking about it all that much. I wasn't necessarily interested all that much. And then something happened that made me interested. And who knows, maybe that could happen with other topics, or maybe if we go further down the road into this with John Green and Bigfoot, that will trigger something else. I'm not sure where the journey ends.
Well, that brings up Leigh into this question, because Leigh, you're one of the people who helped distribute this film. And for you, with the popularity that this is having, obviously you're looking at this film from a business perspective rather than a film perspective. Do you see the benefit of going and looking deeper into a lot of these topics that the fringe territory has really, played the last few years?
There's no question. I'm particularly interested in where Taylor goes with the next installment of this, because I like the tone he's set up. It really is a question of how the story is presented, and will it add anything new and interesting to this conversation. I mean, you don't just do any kind of Bigfoot movie. In my view, it's got to be special. It's got to it has to have that visceral emotional connection for me that this one did. So yeah, I think there are going to be more movies like this made, but as far as I know, this is the first one that really documents gets you a real sense of this subculture and the disagreements within it, and centers around one obsessive, and then introduces guys like Robert Pyle, obviously, either trained biologists and people that have, studied this intently and are clearly intelligent, thoughtful people. There's a whole mix of folks. So it really just depends on what it is. You know it when you see it.
And I get that, and I can appreciate that. But, getting back to you here for a second, Taylor, and what you've learned from John Green regarding this film, has it made you wonder how many other, people have these cryptid fetishes to go out and look for all of these different creatures? I mean, it's not just Bigfoot. There's Dogman, there's gnomes, there's, all sorts of gargoyle type creatures, sea monsters. And that's just in the cryptid world. I mean, then you open up the eyes to the people who are claiming they're having extraterrestrial contact and having communication from aliens from above. I mean, it really opens up the Pandora's box of the weird and strange to really become discovered because of filmmakers like you.
Yeah, I think, as you spoke to that, something dawned on me, and it's really about the person, in this case, John Green, that was the initial sort of interest. And in terms, I was interested in Bigfoot in these stories, but when I met John and his authenticity and his obsession, that was sort of the trigger to decide, hey, I'm going to spend this much time doing this because of John. And if there was a similar type of person, whether it was anything else in the paranormal sphere, I think it would be more about the person and what I saw in that person than necessarily what they were looking for, if that makes sense. And And what, again, I see in John and maybe what I were to see in somebody else is they have to have that authenticity. It can't be a game to them. It can't be made up. It has to be, you really have to believe what they think is sort of true. Because there's so many, like I said before, there's so many people, when the camera turns on, they turn into something else, most people. And so if you could find the right person, that would be very interesting to me, sort of regardless of what they may be searching for.
What kind of person is that?
Well, again, I think it starts with that authenticity, with the ability to just be yourself all the time when that camera's on, and not start, I don't know, turning into a different person. I assume you kind of know maybe what I'm talking about to a degree, and then having a uniqueness and a character and a vibe that people are drawn to and sort of want to witness. It's sometimes you either have it or you don't. I don't know if you can be taught, but another person that comes to mind, I continue to mention him, is Bob Pyle, of course, and of course it's Bigfoot again. And they've already made a film on Bob, but I would have loved to have perhaps adapted where Bigfoot walks crossing the dark divide, and I would have cast Bob in it instead of the actor that they cast, who did a fine job, but it wouldn't have been the same as Bob. And he's just such a character. I mean, you've seen him. He's in the film. He's doing those owl hoops, and the way he looks and the way he speaks. He's his own type of movie star. And so again, it depends on it. Just for me, it starts with the person. And when you come across them, sometimes instantaneously, I remember within the first 30 seconds of meeting John, it was just, wow, this guy, he's it, And so I think if I were to find somebody like that, it would draw me in. Now there's other challenges. It's not coincidental that this film takes place in my backyard, just because it's logistically easy, and I can do it because I have a whole nother life outside of making films with my job and my family and my kids. So you have to take that into consideration.
No, very true. But from a business standpoint, Lee, when you look at all of these different casts of characters, the more you look into all of this paranormal realm, and using the paranormal as the umbrella term again, I mean, how many stories are out there that make your head just swirl? I mean, I could just imagine from a business point of view, seeing the success of this one. I mean, you got to be thinking that there has to be another John Green of the UFO world, or a John Green of the Dogman world, or Sea Serpent world, or the ghostly paranormal world that could really break out some kind of story that would interest you.
Well, I understand what you're saying, and maybe it's just my own way of looking at the business, and that I don't want to do the same thing again and again and again, and I started in business, just basically being completely involved with, black audience media, forming a company that released that stuff for filmmakers that, black filmmakers that owned their own content. That moved into, getting involved with Hispanic content. And these days, I later, developed and wrote the original drafts of Straight Outta Compton. These days, I'm really interested in very specific things that speak to me, and this film did. Now, does that mean I wouldn't get involved with another Bigfoot-oriented film? Yes, I would if Taylor were involved with it, because I like working with him. But I don't, and I'm not saying that there aren't going to be a giant opportunity for others that are putting together films, that examine their own experiences, relative to Sasquatch or Bigfoot, because it's a vital market and there's an appetite for this clearly, and I think we're seeing that in our release process here in the Northwest. But I'm pretty specific about what I like. I've got to see it on screen. I got to see a compelling portrayal, or if just getting involved in what I would consider generic Bigfoot content wouldn't really interest me, because this is hard work. Releasing a movie in theaters is hard work, and what you want to do, if you get in business with a filmmaker, you want to be able to look them in the eye and say, I'm going to do the very, very best job I can to give a profile to this film. And there's a lot of content out there, and there are lots of subjects that interest me. So hopefully that answers your question.
No, and I understand that, because you want to be careful. You don't want to all of a sudden, stroke the brush and make sure that everything is the same, except in a different documentary. Hell, we see that with all of these UFO researchers, where they say the exact same thing on 15 different documentaries. That is boring. The minute I see certain characters on 4 documentaries in a row, by the time I hit that 3rd or 4th one, I'm tuning out.
And there's that generic feel to them. And honestly, you can see a space of a subject get too crowded, get overcrowded with a lot of, what you would consider to be low end content. This is a major film. This, that Taylor has done a major examination. If someone were to bring me something, akin to that, then sure, I'd look at it, because I think we're getting to know the pockets in this country and the ways in which you market a film, that is, has Bigfoot as its subject.
Well, I can tell you this, as someone who, is kind of interested in and excited about what you guys have produced. Taylor, I think you're opening up a really cool box here of learning, if you go into it, some really cool stories from some amazing people like John Green, but from a different genre. And I think if you opened up that door, which really very few have, I think you would be the man on the mission and the man people go to. I really do. But then again, my expertise going into movies is, extremely slim. It's almost as bad as my poker game in Vegas. So forgive me for that, but I'm just looking at this from an outsider's perspective, and someone who deals with these topics on a daily basis, and hearing some of these incredible stories from people who have these encounters.
Yeah, I'm always open and curious, and would love to be aware of stories and people. Absolutely. Otherwise you can't ever tell a story if you don't have that type of awareness. I will say one thing with John and many others who appear in this film, most everyone who appears in this film, wasn't seeking attention. They don't have a social media following, or they're not trying to. John carries his little camera around and talks about what would happen if he were to see it, but he's not really seeking attention. And a lot of these people aren't. I approached them, and I think some of them are a little caught off guard by that, or confused maybe. And some people didn't even initially want to tell their stories, and some people didn't tell their stories. There's a number of people I tried to interview in here who didn't want to share their stories for fear that they might be sort of outcast in their community. And to me, those people are sort of, in some ways, the most interesting folks to talk to and to dive into. Back to that authenticity. I sometimes feel, and this isn't a golden rule, doesn't apply to everyone, that some of the best stories out there, the ones that are being promoted the hardest and say marketed might not necessarily fit what I'm trying to do, if that makes sense.
Or be the best stories.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and the like I said earlier in the show, I think the humanity of it all, as we have about 5 minutes to go with you gentlemen tonight in a show that's kind of flown on by, and Taylor's like, we've made it 5 minutes left. Hey man, I get it. I do this every day.
Flying by. I'm enjoying myself. I really am.
Yeah,
Good. I'm very happy. I'm very happy that you guys are. But you mentioned earlier, Taylor, that you may do a part 2 to this John Green story. What would lead you down that path to do that?
Well, there's a logistical side of it that I won't bore you with by going into detail about my job and my family and all that, but that would have to align. But assuming that aligned, I would really have to dive into exactly where John is now. I mean, I don't always keep in top-notch touch with him. See if there's any new development. See if there's been other people introduced into his life, and see where the story goes. I mean, let's say, for example, that John has decides in the next year that he's not doing this anymore. Maybe that. I mean, John is getting older. There's only so much you can sort of survive effectively out there. So if John decides to give up the hunt, then there probably wouldn't be a sequel. But if he's at this and he's as passionate as he's been the last few years, and there's more people in his life and his surroundings, and there's sort of things still to discover, I think a sequel could make all the sense in the world.
I want to add something, Dave, and that is,
Please.
in this process, you don't necessarily know exactly what you're going to get. This is the high wire act of a docu drama, and that you might set out and you have a particular point of view, or you think something's going to go a certain way, but there's what you set out to do, and there's what you get along the way, and that's what's the miracle. That's all the miracles and the crazy stuff and the great stuff that happens in a film like this is often just captured in happenstance. You didn't necessarily expect that was going to happen the way it did, but it did. And so you can't often preconceive these things. You can just go down the path and say, okay, I think I'm going to take this journey, and I'm hoping something's going to accrue. But the gold comes often; it's unexpected.
We got 2 minutes left. Gentlemen, tell my listeners, especially those in Washington State, who are going to have an opportunity to watch this film in the theater, where can they find it?
All right. Well, we're opening in West Seattle at the Admiral Theater tomorrow. That'd be Friday the 20th. It's been heavily promoted there. We're going to open at the Varsity Theater in the U District on the 27th. We're currently on Bainbridge Island right now, held over, and we're still in North Bend. So we're in 4 theaters, at the moment, and with more looking to add. We're talking to people in the other communities. They're following it. They're watching what we're doing, and we'll definitely be contacting some people in Harrison Hot Springs.
Well, there's a lot of areas out there, small towns, that the only thing they have going for them is Sasquatch, as a tourist attraction. And I didn't know that until I took a rural trip a couple of years ago through Washington State and seeing all these communities and gas stations having Sasquatch T-shirts, hats, keychains, stickers, everything to go along with it.
Dave, we had one of the local business people we engaged. We had the film playing in Monroe, Washington, which is famous for a big penitentiary that's there in town. And just down the road is a business called the Espresso Chalet. And I contacted the guy, and he goes, I'm the biggest seller of Sasquatch merchandise in the state of Washington. And so he took banners and T-shirts and all kinds of things.
Beautiful.
But there are lots of those people, apparently. They're in the merchandise business. They're in the Sasquatch merchandise business.
Why not? Taylor Guterson, Leigh Savidge, thank you so much for taking the time to come out and introduce your movie, Hunting Bigfoot, to the Spaced Out Radio listeners. We really do appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Great. Thanks for having us, Dave.
All right. Coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start a brand new feature tonight. It's called Dave 101. Yeah, I'm bringing my blog back, but we're going to do it with my voice instead of my fingers typing it out and reading it online. Dave 101, followed by the SOR Newswire and the Thought of the Dave. Stay tuned. Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Great job, guys.
Great. Thank you.
Great job. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you guys coming in.
Oh, thanks for having us.
It's a different type of show that we did tonight for our listeners, but I was excited to get a different point of view, and I think we came across pretty good with that. So thank you so much. And I hope I did you guys some justice too.
No, we got a new theatrical contact now, because we're going to be on Harrison Hot Springs tomorrow.
Well, perfect. And like I said, if you guys need to use this interview for advertising your movie, I really don't mind. Just credit it back, and that's all I care about.
Sure. Thanks a lot, man.
Thank you for the questions, Dave. It was nice talking with you.
Absolutely, guys. Have a good night, and we'll talk soon, okay?
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Good guys there. Very good guys. I'm excited about their film. Very excited. Adventures with Beth, the gorgeous Adventures with Beth, saying, "Hey, Chad Smith, LOL. Hello, Beth Smith." And let's see here. Who else has come in late? Iron Dogger, good to see you, buddy. That was fun. It's a little bit different than what we were used to. John Hudson, how's your Stetson tonight? It's a little bit different than what we did, but you know what? I thought it was fun. Thanks, Sue Gary. By the way, tomorrow night on the show, we got a little bit of a change in guest. The crypto guru, Ronald Murphy, had to cancel. Gary Spikes Jr. is going to be our guest tomorrow night. We're talking Sasquatch again. And maybe we'll even take, if you've had a Sasquatch encounter, maybe we'll even take your calls so you can tell us about your Sasquatch encounter. That might be kind of cool. Hey, Gary, I know you just said yeah to your computer. That's kind of funny. I still don't know what I'm talking about for tonight. But we got great theme music. Yeah, we do. Yeah. Little Gary Spikes Jr. Going to be our guest tomorrow. Oh, my stomach just kind of growled. Did you hear that? That's kind of cool. Good night, Snakes on a UFO. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you to Ozzy, Steve, Vinster, and Deanna. Thank you. Pam, Christopher, Ozzy, Steve again, Mark, Mike times 2, Apollo, Black Dragon, and Adam. Really appreciate the super chats. Thank you so much. And it's a great way to support what we do. And we really do appreciate the love that you guys share with us. So thank you so much. Apollo 11, send your bookings. I'll send the email right here. That's where the guest suggestions go right there, because I always forget. I got a lot of stuff happening, as you know, excuse me, during the show. And so just send it to bookings at spacedoutradio.com. And that's the best place to put it. We got 1 minute. Walter Sobchak, the Walter Sobchak, good Ukrainian kid right there. No, there's Mega Woo after Peak Woo. We've only hit Mega Woo like twice. Here we go. We rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. My name is Dave Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Really do appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Want to remind you that if you missed most of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot and reading up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show. We got a brand new feature coming up right now on the show. It's going to happen weekly, every week at this time. It's called Dave 101.
It's time for Dave 101.
You know, Dave 101 is about my thoughts, because I got a lot of people always asking me, Dave, how come we never really hear your opinion on the show? And I used to write a blog weekly on this show, and it would really, really kind of push me and allow me to get my thoughts out. However, over the last number of weeks, I kind of laid off the blog because there wasn't a lot for me to do. Even though there was a ton of topics, everybody was already covering it. I'm like, darn it, like, what do we got to do? That's why we started up with John Hudson on the Unbiased UFO Report. And that's the reason why, we wanted to start another feature here that people could also catch it on our YouTube channel as well as a separate feature. Because we were talking about bringing the vlog and turning it into, or a blog, turning it into a vlog. Confusing for some, including said host. But my topic, as I introduce this Dave 101 to you guys tonight, is this. I'm starting to hate ufology. I really am. And let me explain why. Some of you may come out and say, boy, this guy sounds like he's whining. This guy sounds like he's complaining just because he didn't get his shot while others are. No, that isn't it at all. What I'm complaining about and why I'm starting to really dislike ufology is because everything is the same. And there isn't a lot of teamwork that goes into UFOs. The same groups hang out with the same groups, and the outsiders are never invited to the party. We have 3 sections. I've literally made this understanding that there is 3 sections to ufology. Section number 1 is the old guard, the people who've been around 20, 30, 40, 50 years, doing the same thing. They're all on the conference circuit. They all know each other. They all do the tours. They all share information with each other. Then you got the middle crowd, which is where I think we fall into, which is, hey, everybody likes those people. Everybody, pats those people on the back, but they're not one of the originals. They're not one of the people that we go to. Then you have the younger UFO crowd. The younger UFO crowd doesn't necessarily mean age, but people who have literally been in the spotlight the last few years and are just making a name for themselves in this community. Now, the younger crowd, for a lot of them, have been really ignored by the older crowd. And the younger crowd has done a great job. Sorry, it's over here. Has done a great job at promoting itself. They took full advantage of social media. I look at people in that younger crowd like Danny Silva from the Silver Record. He is somebody I highly admire. I may not fully agree with his opinion on UFOs and the narrative, but I do know that Danny is very connected. He's worked very hard. He's not there to upset people. He's there to provide the information that he has been given. So he gets a thumbs up. All right. I look at people like Grant Cameron in the old guard, who literally are not concerned about the borderlines as much as it is about the investigation of UFOs and seeing where those topic takes us, whether it's government conspiracy, whether it's consciousness, whether it's people claiming that they have flown UFO ships. But in the end, we don't see a lot of the younger guard getting a lot of conference speaking. And what they are doing is they're starting their own podcasts, they're starting their own networks, they're starting their own blogs and news outlets like The Debrief. And they're saying, screw you to the old guard. You guys have done nothing for us up until this point, save for a few. We're the ones getting the information. We're the ones who are working our tails off to bring proper news to this. We're not worried about the conferences. We're not worried about the popularity. We're here to get to the story wherever that narrative lies. But the narrative. Not allowed to question the narrative. That's where us people in the middle kind of get screwed. We get screwed by the old guard because they don't want anybody encroaching on their territory for their conferences, their television shows, their everything. Their $250 blogging sessions with live Zoom links. All right. They don't care. The conferences need the old guard because the old guard has the name effect to them. They are the people who have the following. They are the people who have the people who are the followers, who are going to run their people through the doors, through the gates of all of these conferences. People in the middle whom you may know, you may trust, you may enjoy, rarely get that opportunity to cross either border, if I'm making sense. We have a say. We're smart. We have opinions that matter. We have picked up on information that the old guard refuses to listen to and the new guard doesn't care to listen to. And it's like being stuck on a deserted island where we're trying our hardest to get the message out. And it's like that old Queensryche song. Is anybody listening? And then you realize that the people whom you're trying to build that relationship don't care about what you're doing. And therefore, when I look at the UFO story, for instance, I was the only one to this day pointing out the media, mainstream, screwing the UFO field by not asking the right questions, not knowing what those questions were. And to have people in ufology critique that, who've never worked in journalism, say that I was wrong, I don't know what I'm talking about, just made me shake my head. It's been going on since the To the Stars Academy came out. But the point that I'm getting at overall is this. Ufology is turning into a giant mess. We have people attacking each other. For what? The majority of us don't make money off of this. We have people making false accusations about each other. For example, accusing people of, buying followers on social media outlets like YouTube. Okay, without any proof. We have people out there who are trying to ruin others' careers or others' research. Why? Because they want to take that step up onto the next pedestal. They don't want the people who they feel are below them to get that opportunity, or above them, they believe it's time to fall. Many a times I've seen on UFO Twitter where a lot of these young guns, have said it's time for the old guard to step aside and let the new guard come on in and take over ufology. Don't need that either. It literally has become a giant soap opera of moody people, cranky people, arrogant people, and people not willing to recognize hard work, whether it's in radio, whether it's in YouTube, whether it is in research itself or writing books. There are a ton of people that deserve an opportunity to present their research, to present their information, to present their stories that do not get an opportunity to do so because they are shut down by one of the guards. Come on into the middle with the rest of us. You're more than welcome. The water is fine. And until ufology starts to say that this isn't good enough, the outsiders like you, the listener, need to be able to put their names on the line saying, you know what? I don't like this person because they're treating the rest of ufology like crap. Or I don't like this person because they're trying to pawn off CGI videos on me. Or I don't like this person because they refuse to look at the experiencer. We got to drop the I don't likes and make things happen. Ufology is going to happen in 3 stages in order to get to disclosure. We're already through stage 1, which is, if you buy into the story of Luis Elizondo, that we have to be able to move forward with the topic that UFOs are real. We got that. All right. Phase 2 is saying that it's not Russia, it's not China, and it's something otherworldly. Wherever that world is, we don't know as of yet. Phase 3 is the next one. What are we going to do when all of a sudden we say aliens are here? Is ufology prepared for that? We know the mainstream public probably is not, but is ufology really ready for that? Because for years, they have denied the experiencer. They have denied the anecdotal stories of eyewitness testimony. They have denied people the opportunity to rise up and make something of themselves in some sort of name and capacity, much like Travis Walton had the ability to do so. We need more of that. We need more stories. We need more what's the word I'm looking for? We need more help and trust in getting people out there. It's not about proof, people. Everybody wants proof. Where is your proof? You don't have proof. All you have is a story. Last time I checked, ET is not allowing you to bring your cell phones on board craft and take a bunch of photos like you're at Disneyland. It's not what happens. It's not how the game is played. So for all these reasons, I'm really starting to get sick of ufology. I love the topic. I love a lot of the people who are involved. I love the personal relationships I have gained through people like Samantha Mowat, Lorian Fenton, Nicole Sasquatch, Bob McGuire, and many, many others. What I don't like is the attitude of the entire field that is divisive. It's subjugated to a lot of politics. It's subjugated to you only get as far by who you know. And it's unfortunate because there's a lot of great programming and there's a lot of great information out there as we continue on to bring this story to you. So on this show, we're not going to cut out ufology. No. We're going to continue with UFOs. But what we are going to do is we are going to continue to bring stories to you of those personal encounters, those impersonal sightings. What the government does, we have no control. What we do, we have full control. And that is your first ever Dave 101 of the week. The news is always changing, which is why we bring you the SOR Newswire at the back end of every show, where we get to the weird, the strange, the wacky, and sometimes the hilarious. Oh, Captain Shirk, you never cease to amaze me. No, Shirky Poo, you got me on this one. You know why? Because our lead story tonight is about the penis worm. Yep, you heard me say it. Australia's oceans are home to a startling array of biodiversity: whales, dolphins, dugongs, and more. But not all components of Aussie marine life are as charismatic as the other creatures that they promote on documentaries, films, and photograph. No, the Achurian or spoonworm is one such animal. It's also known as the penis worm. There is no Save the Achurian Foundation and no influencers selling merchandise to help save this flaccid piece of sea material. No, but these phallic invertebrates are certainly worth the time as integral, fascinating members of the marine ecosystem. Taxidermists or taxonomists have classified Achurians in various different ways over the years. They're unique animals. They're considered a group of the annelid worms that literally lost their segmentation. Therefore, their head looks like you know what. Their body looks like you know what. But these hammers can grow to about 6.5 feet in length. That is one big penis worm. Most Achurians live in marine sand and mud in long U-shaped burrows, but for some, they like to live between the rocks, get a little scratch every now and again. Yep, they live up to 6,000 meters deep. Ugly as sin. You don't really want to find one because it does look kind of gross. And of course, their larvae, by the way, as we move on, looks like a pair of gonads. Thanks, Captain Shirk, for that education listen. A suspected Italian drug trafficker who police believe may have bought 2 stolen Vincent van Gogh paintings has been arrested in the United Arab Emirates. Raffaele Imperial was arrested in Dubai on August 4th by local authorities who cooperated with Italian police. He had been on the run since 2016, and Italy had included him in a list of its most dangerous fugitives. In 2016, 2 Van Gogh paintings were stolen in Amsterdam in 2002, and congregation leaving the Reformed Church of Newnan and view of the sea at Scheveningen were found by police in a Villa Imperiale owned by near Naples. Each painting is worth around $58 million. Holy cow. All right, moving on. Sea snakes are a total nightmare fuel. Yep, as if the ocean wasn't bad enough full of sharks, we got poisonous snakes. But new research suggests their frequent attacks on scuba divers are in reality botched attempts to get laid. What the hell are you putting out here, Captain Shirk? Kind of randy mood are you in tonight? Anyways, many scuba divers who explore tropical coral reefs in Australia and New Guinea are all too familiar with the highly venomous olive sea snake. These marine reptiles will often chase and attack divers without any provocation. These encounters can get scary in a real hurry, especially when a sea snake wraps itself around a diver's leg and arm and chomps down. Deaths from venomous bites are recorded annually, and they typically involve fishermen. Attack on scuba divers is also reported, but apparently, according to Richard Shine, in a new study, the sea snakes are just little horny bastards trying to get lucky, and their physical prowess gets a little rough and randy at times. Why should a snake attack a person that is too big to eat and poses no threat? Well, put it this way. It just wants to make sweet love in the ocean. And that's all that is. So if you find a sea snake coming after you, you know it's unlucky in both ways. At least that's what I think. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where we ask a question on our Facebook and Twitter pages, then read your responses on the air, because, you know, we kind of love the audience participation around here. Today's Thought of the Dave is as follows. What's your thoughts on hunting for Sasquatch? Graham, you cannot hunt Bigfoot. He lets you know. He lets you follow him on his trails and paths to a lair, and maybe he's hoping for a female human concubine for his needs. Mark, never going to get either by hunting. Heard a story about a dog man being caught up in a bear trap, and I think that's his only way. I don't care how many armed men you have, they will always have a marked advantage in the woods. Hector, down in Mexico. Awesome idea that you should lead. Let us know if there's an initiative, and I'd be happy to join. Hector, I'm way too scared to try and smack around a Bigfoot. I really am. I don't think they can be killed. Let's go to Magnus. I don't support hunting Sasquatch at all. I think it's inhumane and would be a waste of life, the same as trophy hunting. Dave from Kevin. They're not going to jump into that skillet all by themselves. Will. Can't hunt a creature that's interdimensional. Bobby. A Sasquatch would be easier for my taxidermist than when I go hunt for ghosts. Very true. Michael. I hear Bigfoot tastes just like chicken. Of course it does. Thank you to everybody in the Thought of the Dave, Captain Shirk for the news, and of course to our guests tonight, Taylor Guterson and Leigh Savidge. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thaw rocking in the background with Little Brother is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight on YouTube, Twitch, LGAB, Revolution Radio, Spreaker, the Facebook Space Travelers Pub, and on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, say it with me, we own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. That was a fun show. Good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you all for being here. All right. I need an honest opinion. So I want to see what you guys think. What is your opinion of Dave 101 doing a weekly vlog? I'm just curious. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Should we improve on it? What do you think? Let me know. Hey, Tom Price, how are you? Palau, how are you on Twitch? Good to see you. Block Sheep, thank you for joining us, gorgeous. All right, so you guys like it. Okay, so the topics will change week to week to week. I mainly wanted to get that first one out just to get a feel for it, and then we'll move forward from there, and we'll pick. God, my hair looks good like that. We'll pick a different topic per week, kind of what's happening in the news. You know. All right. Thank you, my brother Eugene. Eugene and I are like twins, except he's like 10 minutes older. See, now my hair looks like the guy in the photo. So if you look way over here, now my hair looks the same. Hi, owner. How are you? That one I went right off. I knew what I was going to talk about tonight. That one I've been angry for a couple weeks, kind of behind the scenes here. I don't really care to talk about it, but I'm just tired of the BS and ufology. Really am. Might suffer from lower back pain. I don't know. Maybe that's just the way the spine goes. No, Vinny, I stopped writing my blog, and I'm going to do it this way because we were going to do a video blog anyways, plus written blog on the same way. And I just wanted something different. I didn't want to have to double up and repeat. So that's why we're testing this out just to see how it is. Put that down there. I'll get the music figured out. That was a little too hot on the music too. So bear with me on that one. I have a lot of frustration with the UFO field right now. A lot of frustration. Where am I going here? What am I doing? Bear with me, guys. Thurston Howell the Third, how are you? Reborn from Ash, how you doing? Appreciate you. I am not booked at all through 2020. This will be the first year since 2016 that I have not done a conference. I'm okay with that. Which one? Here? Or here? Here? Or here? Or here? Or up here? Or, right, hold on, right, wrong hand, right here. Or right there. I have interviewed Duke from World Bigfoot Radio a couple of times. They are on our archives. Love me some Duke action. I never told Duke this, but I will say this now. I think if you take a good look at Duke and look at the former bass guitarist of Van Halen, Michael Anthony, I think they're twins. Mark D, what's happening? Any other questions from my beautiful crew? B. Hoff, I'm very cool with being nicer to the flat earth people. It's just when they come in and start trolling my room and calling people stupid and everything along those lines, that's where I kind of get my hackles up. I am more than willing to have a proper conversation. Hey, I'm not going to lie. I'm not a flat earther, but I do have some questions. All right. I really do. And okay to ask questions. The way some flat earthers act in very childish manner, that's why they don't get the opportunity to come in and speak. You know what's weird about doing a flat earth show? Is um is how angry people get on that topic. Every time I do a flat earth show, and we've only done a couple over the history of this show, I get messages on Twitter, Facebook, email saying that people have unsubscribed and will never listen to my show again because I gave Flat Earth a chance and somebody the ability to speak. It's one of those topics that just fires and pisses people off. Thank you, Black Dragon. I'll even put that up there. Jaime doesn't do a lot of late night shows. By the way, there is one documentary coming out soon where I'm the English version of Jaime Maussan. I don't know when it's coming out, but I know it is because I did the voiceover for it. Sonia, are you ready to come on the air with me yet or what? Or are you still going to be chicken? Your mother is Chad Smith. Take that. Hold on. Captain Shirk messaged me. The Dave 101 was exactly what we wanted, and each week a different topic will give the audience something to look forward to. Well done. I did think the music was a little too frenetic, but that could be just me. Anyways, I call it a success. Thank you, Captain Shirk. This is why we love you. Good old Shirky Poodles. Just wait until we get the new Captain Shirk music out for the news. It's going to be awesome. Little taste here. Shirky, Shirky Poo, where are you? It's time to read the news now. Shirky, Shirky Poo, where are you? We need the news from you now. Come on, Shirky Poo, I see you. You're writing with a fever. You're not fooling me, 'cause I can see the way I haven't figured that part out yet. Yeah. Anyways. We're going to get there. We're going to make it happen. Yep. Your mom's Chad Smith. Take that. And you know what? We're Apollo 11. We are totally like, I love the UFO subject. I do. I love it. But it's just becoming really, really personal. I'll give you an example, guys. Okay. There's a person in this field who's pretty new, and I highly respect this person. Okay. I do. I respect this person a lot. Okay. This person's Canadian and a brilliant, brilliant young mind. All right. No issues whatsoever. Zero. But this person the other day puts on their Facebook page. Now, they've been in ufology for approximately 6-7 months. Maybe a tad longer, maybe a tad shorter. Really doesn't matter. And this person put on their Facebook the other day that they were going on and had been approached and accepted the position of being a UFO expert on this new TV show. Now, good for this person because this person is very smart and brilliant. Okay. And like I said, I like this person a lot. A lot of respect for that person. but you're 6 months in. Okay. There's people who've been doing this 6 years, 10 years, longer, 20 years, who've never had an opportunity on a television show to get a television show. Not once. And yet here we are. And that frustrates me because this is a field where hard work does not pay off. It doesn't pay off at all. Right? Doesn't pay off. And what I mean by paying off, one second here. Hold on.
$5 a month.
Oh, that's not what we want. All right, that's where we got to cut. Okay, so this should be the theme. No, that's the news.
Are they really? Everybody.
It's time for Dave 101.
I like that theme. I really like that theme. All right. So the point that I'm getting at is no, this person isn't, as far as I know, is not an experiencer. Brilliant business mind. And that's kind of how it is. So anyways, that just kind of frustrated me. The other thing that frustrated me was this. Hold on. Just want to make sure I got this all done. Oh, damn it. I opened up the wrong program here. Hold on. Here's for you, Vanner. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful. Isn't that beautiful? Scares the snot out of me. Love it. Anyways, getting back to the point that I'm trying to make here. The other thing that happened last week that really peed me off was this. We did an incredible panel. On Paul Hellyer with Grant Cameron, Steve Bassett, Victor Vigiani, Bob McGuire, Sinead Wellahan. All right. Couple days later, and nobody shared that show that I saw. Nobody shared it on social media or UFO Twitter that I saw. Couple days later, this podcast that I've never heard of, not to be insulting, I just honestly have never heard of that certain podcast, does a show, a Paul Hellyer tribute, with a couple of our same guests from that night. And guess which show is being shared all over social media, even by some of the people on the panel? Not ours. Not ours. And yeah, that one's a little bit sour grapes. and I can admit that. That one's a little bit of sour grapes. But the idea that our show, for the size that it is, we're not a small show. These guys don't even bother sharing, but on another podcast, they're all over it. And that kind of just bugged me. And that's when I actually realized that all the yeses I've been doing, can you promote our conference? Can you promote this? Can you put this person on? Can you put that person on? Yeah, I can absolutely do that. Absolutely. I'm always here to help out. Sure. You know what? When it's time for the invites to go out, guess who never gets invited? Like, it's not sour grapes. I want to clarify that. It's not sour grapes. It's scratching the palm. So, for instance, Lori and Fenton every year asks me point blank if she could pay me to advertise her conference. And every year I say no, because I know the following year, every 2 years, she's going to have me speak there. And that costs her a lot of money, because there's flight, hotels, okay, my food. That's about $1,000 bill, right? Ethereal Aura, how are you? Look, I'm not putting down the other people. They're working really, really hard. And this is probably the most brilliant ufology has ever been. Okay. And so that's what we're doing. Vanner, you hit the nail on the head there. We're going to be a little bit more selfish. We are. We're going to be a little bit more selfish. Why? Because it is time for us to say no, or it's time for us to say what's in it for us. What do we get out of it? And I don't like conflict. I don't like a lot of that type of stuff. But at some point, you have to properly and professionally, excuse me, properly and professionally protect yourself, your reputation, and your business. And that's what it comes down to. Our audience keeps growing. Like every day, I'm seeing new people in our chat room. I'm seeing the numbers on YouTube going up. Oh, yeah. No, unfortunately, we don't actually buy those, contrary to popular belief. All right. Popular belief of some. Oh, goodness. I forgot to do this. Oh, no, I haven't yet. Haven't got there yet. Okay. But it is frustrating to see how many people that I know personally, without mentioning their names, who get walked over on this field. I mean, you think about it. How often do we talk Bigfoot per month? How often do we talk Bigfoot? A lot. Never once been invited to a Bigfoot conference. And there's probably about 10 or 15 of them in Washington state alone. Right? So it's just time to kind of draw some lines in the sand. Yes, Selena. Yes, you're not getting paid. It's untrue. Fake news. Right? No, I'm not angry, Vanner. I'm not angry at all. I'm just frustrated. And it's not about the conferences or anything like that. All right. It's literally about, the hard work you put in and seeing it where it comes. If you want to be a famous, show proof of anything UFO related, it's simple. Show proof. There is no proof anywhere, Willie. There is no proof. Besides, you hate this show. You tell me all the time you hate this show. And Willie, I like you. You don't like me, but I like you. It's a one-sided friendship here, my friend. A one-sided friendship. What's with that? Thank you, Willie. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I know you hate it. I know you do. My man, Willie. One-sided friendship, as you know. Paul, which crypto and paranormal museum is that? I'd love to speak at Grandma Rose's bingo parlor. I'm in, Fap. Totally in. Willie hates me. Absolutely hates me. Hates this show. But he listens all the time. It's amazing. Love you, Willie. Littleton. Did I do something with them? Why does that suck? I want to just see something. Oh, that's a different one. It's not the one I was thinking of. That's very cool. It's very cool. Very cool. Any other questions? Oh, I'm totally hanging in. I'm not going anywhere. Not going anywhere at all. It's not forcing me to make a decision or question whether or not all this is worth it. This is totally worth it. I have fun doing this. I really do. Thank you, Reborn. Appreciate that super chat. Thank you. Lance, what pizza topping do you hate? Anchovies. I'm still editing here, so I have time for questions, Vanner. And I slept until 10:09 this morning. I had 9 hours sleep. I'm wide awake. I'll let you know when I'm tired. I always do. Nope, I'm not taking the dogs out right now. Any kind of cheeseburger. Hey, Sasquatch, how you doing? Where's Selena from? Could Macho Man beat Bret Hart up? I'd like to see that match back in the day. I don't know. I really don't know. No, I'm not gonna. Ross and I had a conversation. I'm gonna keep that between him and I because it was private. Oh, I agree with you, Apollo 11. No, we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. And by the way, I think Macho Man wins because he's a little bit more powerful than Bret Hart. The excellence of execution. Let's shut this off here. All right, Chad Smith. See you tomorrow. Chad Smith versus Lou Elizondo. His neck. I'd like to see Chad Smith's goatee go against Lou Elizondo's soul patch. That's the match I want to see. That's the match I want to see. Yep. Not going to lie. That's the one I want. All right. So these ones are done. We're still downloading. We got like a few minutes left. Wow. Adventures with Beth is going like old school. Chief J Strongbow, Buddy Wolf, Haystack Calhoun. Interested in getting into voiceover work? Yes, good advice. Get a website, get a bunch of demo tapes, just make them up. Do everything from commercial scripts like car dealerships and PSA announcements to don't do anything stupid. Anybody, unless you want to get into like cartoons or something like that. Don't do anything cartoonish. If you wanted to get into voiceover work for like commercials and radio and video games and all that, best to just do really clean reads. Okay. Learn how to end a sentence. Punctuation, believe it or not, is so important when it comes to understanding. Like, there's one guy, okay, I love that show Robot Wars, or Battle Bots, pardon me, the Battle Bots. And they have this announcer who introduces the robots to the battleground. And he ends every sentence on a high note. And it drives me bonkers because you're never supposed to end a sentence on a high note. If you end a sentence on a high note, that basically says that there is another sentence flowing right afterwards. So learn what the punctuation means and follow that punctuation. A comma is a very important thing. A colon and a semicolon are very important things. Periods, exclamation points, question marks, very important things. And once you figure out how punctuation works, and it sounds so silly, but I mean it, it will up your voiceover value very much, very much. So I hope that helps. Get about 10 pieces, 30 seconds long. Put them all on a recorded demo where people can hear them, like a YouTube channel or something along those lines. Any other questions before I call it the night? Nice comment, Willie. Dave is the Ellen DeGeneres of radio. Softball questions followed by self-mutilation off air. Thanks, buddy. This is why we're friends. Yes, because I self-mutilate. No, I don't have any word for my spirit guides right now. That's my man, Willie. Willie, who has a wooden leg with a kickstand. It's honestly what we go through. Willie tries hard to troll. The problem is it just never works with him. So what he tries to do is he tries to make really mean comments to try and act tough. I think it's funny. Keep it up, Willie. Keep it up. Because the amazing thing is, Willie, each minute that you listen to this show makes my show stronger. So I appreciate you listening. We're trying to get Dan Aykroyd. We are. I don't know. If AK stands for Alaska, Willie probably has good hair too. Imagine that. According to the rumors, if you want to add those in, I paid for Willie's subscription to this channel. All right, race fan. I'm out of here, everyone. Tomorrow night, more Bigfoot talk. We're also, if you have a Sasquatch encounter, we're going to bring you on air to talk about it. I want to hear, we're going to open up the StreamYard link to all of you. So if you've had a Sasquatch encounter, you could come on and talk about it. Tell us your encounter, and then we'll send you back to the chat room. And Gary Spikes Jr. is going to sit with me in here. And if you haven't heard Gary Spikes Jr.'s Sasquatch encounter, it's going to blow your mind. Absolutely blow your mind. And thank you so much for everybody here. Thank you to Adam, Michael ×2, Black Dragon, Apollo, Mark, Aussie Steve ×2, Christopher, Pam, Snakes, Vinny, Deanna, and Ash for the amazing super chats tonight. Really, really appreciate all of you. Thank you for all of you tuning on in. Thank you to all the veterans out there who are, you're loved. The veterans, you are so loved. And you guys are amazing. You guys and ladies are amazing. And it was never for nothing. Remember that. It was never for nothing. And thank you to all of our regulars in the chat room tonight. Really appreciate all of you. Take care. Have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. Take care.